Guys ready? Yeah, we're gonna have Jen in here. All right. Returning from closed session and information received, no action taken. Next step is the Pledge of Allegiance. Tracy, would you lead us today? Thank you. Under adoption of agenda, I have one, if the council so allows me, I'd like to move the presentation at the rear up to the presentations from our friends from Liberia. So if that's fine, we'll have a second presentation during that period of time with the other one. Next item is NHA Advisors Unfunded Pension Liability Update. Is that Ruth?
Yes, that is. Good evening, Mayor Pittman and council members. We have NHA Advisors going to give us a quick presentation via Zoom. And I'd like to introduce Mike Meyer and Eric Scriven from NHA Advisors. They're going to let us know how we went from paying off our unfunded liability to owing $11 million in 1 year.
Thank you.
I'll hand it over.
Thank you, Ruth, for the intro, and good afternoon, honorable mayor and council members. Am I coming in clearly?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Give me 1 second here. Is that coming in clear?
It is?
Okay, wonderful. As Ruth mentioned, I'm Mike Meyer. I manage our pension group. Also on the line is Eric Scriven. We have been working with the city for the last 8 years or so on various bond financings. This update is very specific to the city's CalPERS pension situation. So wanted to walk through where the city currently stands in terms of its unfunded liability, as well as kind of recap the process that the city staff and electeds in the NHA went through in 2021, as I know there are some new members on the city council. So we'll try to keep this fairly brief, 10 to 15 minutes, and as always, jump in with any questions during or after the presentation. Before we get into the 2021 project, just want to define a little bit at a high level how CalPERS works. There's two types of payments that the city makes annually to CalPERS, and the first one is known as the normal cost. That is the annual cost for current employees. The second payment is a payment to amortize the unfunded accrued liability, and that's known as the UAL. And this UAL is essentially the debt that you have with CalPERS. It is the difference between how much you need to have in your account to be fully funded, to really be able to fully pay out retiree benefits versus what you actually have in the account. And so this gap is known as the UAL. It's a very large number for all agencies across the state, and it is amortized over time, just like a mortgage. So CalPERS does amortize that debt at a 6.8% interest rate. I think the other important thing to note, and as Ruth alluded to, is that this is a moving target. So the UAL, and we'll get into how the UAL has changed for the city over time, because it did double from 2014 to 2021. But each year, CalPERS will essentially either miss their investment target, so they'll earn below what they think they'll earn, and that will increase the UAL, or they will surpass what they expect to earn. They have a good investment year and they will reduce that UAL debt. So it is a moving target. That's one important thing to note. So very high level, back in 2021, the city had a $25 million UAL or debt with CalPERS. That had doubled over an 8-year period from 12 million in 2014 to 25 in 2021. And that's mainly because they were not meeting their investment targets. So that sort of trend in the UAL was very common for all agencies statewide. Also in 2021, CalPERS had a very good year. As you recall, the stock market did really well coming out of the height of the pandemic. So CalPERS did earn 21.3% in 2021, which was projected to bring down the UAL to about 17.4 million. In addition to that, the city did have an old pension bond outstanding in the amount of 2.4 million. So in 2021, the city embarked on about an 8 to 9 month process of looking at various ways to refinance and restructure both of those debts at a lower interest rate and with a new payment schedule that was a little bit more predictable and level. So that's kind of the background on why the city issued a $19.2 million pension bond. We'll get into that process in a couple of slides, but the city also used the process to adopt a new pension funding policy and also went through a credit rating process for the very first time. It's just like getting a credit rating for a loan. Essentially, a third party, S&P in this case, assigns you a credit rating. That was a very strong AA minus that the city got. If you look down at the third bullet here, and really the main reason we're delivering this presentation tonight is that there's been another full year that's gone by since the pension bond was issued. CalPERS had a very bad year. They lost negative 7.5%, which is going to generate a new unfunded liability. And we'll get into how that's going to impact the city's budget and when, because there is kind of a lag to when you'll see those impacts, but it's good to start planning now. Very lastly, the city does have a Section 115 trust with approximately $3.5 million in there. That is a very strong position for the city to be in. That's a trust that can only be used for pension and OPEB. So that trust invested over time is going to come in very handy as you start to address the impacts in a few years from these recent changes. Slide 5 is really a graphical summary of the strategy in 2021. To reiterate, the goal there was to pay off all of the UAL with CalPERS at that time at a lower interest rate. So the interest rate on the bond that was issued was at 3.21%. That's a lot lower than CalPERS was charging the city on that debt. They were charging 6.8%. The bars in the chart are the payments that the payment schedule that CalPERS had the city on. So as you can see, it was quite irregular and it was spiking in certain years. And so using the bond, the city was able to restructure those payments at the levels shown in that orange line, which as you can see are more level and at a more predictable, in a more predictable way. And that number was at about $1.4 million. We did estimate nearly $5 million in savings from the restructuring. As I mentioned, it was a fairly lengthy process, lots of CalPERS education with city council and staff. We did look at various options in terms of how much of the UAL to restructure, what kind of repayment shape would work best for the city. And then ultimately in the fall of 2021, we went through the credit rating process and then locked the interest rate on the bonds. And at that time, once that financing was closed, those monies were sent to CalPERS, and that UAL at the time, about 17 million was paid off to zero. Very quickly on the credit rating process, just because this was the first time the city went through this for the general fund. On the left side here, just from a very high level, you can see these are the areas that S&P focuses on when they assign a credit rating to a city. And about 70% of that is controllable. So the finances, the financial performance, as well as the management are what we consider under your control. The economy, not so much. They'll look at the local economy. And then over to the right there, we have a few highlights from the credit rating assessment. They did rate the local economy as strong, given the recent development over the years in large residential tax base. General fund reserves were very high, so that liquidity was something they took into account when assigning the AA- rating, as well as a low debt burden was helpful as well. And the city did receive a strong management score given the various set of policies and practices that you employ. So a AA- rating was very key to helping the city get that 3.2% interest rate on the pension bond. So there's 2 slides left, and this one is a little more complex, a little bit more going on, but I think it's really the crux of the conversation. And just to walk the city council through this chart on the right, in the light blue bars are the payments on the pension bond. That's also shown in the orange line there. And that's the exact same orange line we looked at on the previous slide. So this is really the payments that that the city was left with after the pension bond was issued. And that's at around that $1.4 million level. As I mentioned, CalPERS did have a bad year in 22. They lost 7.5%. They expected to get positive 6.8%. So that's about a 13 or 14% difference there between their target and what they actually got. And so what that's going to do for all agencies statewide is dramatically increase the size of the UAL. We do project that next summer, when the reports come out, it's a little too early right now, but that's why we're here to kind of get ahead of this. But next summer, we believe those reports will show about an $11.8 million unfunded liability. That debt will be amortized at a 6.8% interest rate. And so the payments that we project associated with that new UAL are shown in the dark gray bars in this chart. So you can see those above the orange line. I think a couple key things to note is that there is a little bit of a lag between this event, CalPERS not earning their target, and when the city will see the impact to the budget. And so you can see that those payments will ramp up over the next 6 to 7 years before fully hitting the city's budget in 2029 at around that $2.8 million mark. The other area of the chart that I think is important to point out is that in 2024 and 2025, you can see in those green dotted boxes, the city does have relatively low overall payments. So a little bit more perhaps budget capacity there to set aside some funds. The city may want to consider taking some of those, using some of that money during those lower years and funding the 115 trust that it already has set aside. And as I mentioned before, that 115 trust is relative to the city's UAL is very strong. It's a very high amount of funds to have in a 115, which we applaud the city for doing. And that's going to be very beneficial to help address the rise in cost that you'll see in a few years. And so what we did here in this graph is, again, in the bars show what the city's projected payments are over the next 20 years. So both the pension bond in blue, as well as the UAL payments in gray. And what we assume here is that that money in the 115 trust is left to continue to grow. Obviously, that money is invested right now. That's one of the benefits of a 115 trust is that you do have the ability to invest in the marketplace. So that is something that the city's working with its 115 trust provider on in terms of what portfolio to have that money in. And you can begin to withdraw those funds from the account during the years when the CalPERS bills are going to be a bit higher, and really use that to stabilize the impact to the general fund and really reduce the amount that the general fund has to come out of pocket by using some of the 115 funds to offset the overall payments. And so in this chart, what we did is we assumed that $3.5 million is left to grow over time at a 4.5% interest rate, as well as using about $700,000 over the next couple of years if the city is able to direct some of those monies into the 115. And then over time, the city can withdraw those funds and bring down the payments to where that orange dotted line is. So about the $2.3 million mark, as opposed to the $2.7 million mark. Again, this isn't, a lot of this is assumptions in terms of what that 115 trust will actually earn. But this is something that I think is important to bring to the city's attention because it will impact long-term planning as well as the next couple of budget cycles. So with that, I don't know, Eric, if you have anything to add. I was trying to keep it around 10 minutes, but a lot of this is fairly complex stuff with pensions and pension bonds. So happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Any questions? Without that, I would ask Mr. Meyer, has the state put any restrictions on the investment portfolio for our 115 trust?
And Ruth, correct me if I'm wrong, but is the 115 trust that you have, is that with CalPERS, or I believe that's with a non-CalPERS third party, right? Like PARS?
Correct. It's with a non-PERS party. It's an agency called PARS.
And has there been any restrictions on the investment portfolio? Because that was our big problem with PERS.
Right. No, there has not been.
Okay, that's good to hear. Thank you.
But the market is not doing well right now.
Yeah, that's true. What's one of the things that created this problem is they had so many restrictions on the investment portfolio, we couldn't get the yields back, so.
Yeah, they still do. CalPERS still does.
Right, thank you. Any other questions from the council? Seeing none, thank you, sir. Your very good presentation. Obviously, a lot of detail for us to absorb. It's always a good, clear picture that you present us, so we thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
Next item is another presentation. I'm going to ask Mr. Dan Bogart from Gridley to come up and introduce our guests. Push the button there so your speaker comes on.
Okay. How long introduction would you like?
Well, we know you're past Gridley City Councilman, so we have shorter meetings than them. So let's keep it.
It's my honor to introduce Augustin Flomo from Liberia, who is the Deputy Minister of Finance, actually in charge of economic development for the country. He has made presentations at the United Nations. On his behalf, he's attended Harvard and funded by the World Bank projects. They actually have approximately $1 billion of new investment that they're trying to rebuild in their country following their nasty civil war that they had there. Mm-hmm. Liberia is a great friend of the U.S.
Yeah. Oh, it came back on.
Pushing it. In Africa, they are partners with the United States in so many things, even back to World War II, where they actually repaired our submarines and worked with us on so many things. And so they're Official currency is the U.S. dollar. The official language is English. They are a good partner. They help us out with so many things in Africa, being our representative that's there. And so it's a great joy. We work in Rotary and the churches that make up our association doing it worldwide to try to help feed and clothe and provide good drinking water and all those kind of things to heal, just like we do for our own country and our own cities, except they have even greater need, obviously, with malaria problems and other problems. And so it was with great joy that Gridley Rotary and Oroville Rotary and all the Rotary clubs from Sacramento up here to this area that make up District 5180. And to a larger extent, we donated money. The money was matched by the Rotary District 5180, which was matched by and so it has a doubling effect. Okay,
Just leave it
good,
alone.
thank you. Anyway, so we have been there, and your mayor, Dave, represented his club and your city and all of the United States, along as I did, to go there and partner with them. And we've done great things. So Gussie, come up here first.
Hey, Gussie.
Gussie's the daughter of the two Flomos there. Kind of hold it out.
Wow, very cool.
You know, this beautiful map. Liberia is about 6 million people. The area is about like Northern California, so it's like a whole country that's like Northern California, north of Sacramento.
Gussie, can you turn around for the cameras to see the public? Yeah, there you go, thank you.
You can see in Africa here that it's right on the corner of the rainforest that's there. And this particular project was a clean water and sanitation project. Dave and I went with a doctor, Bert Nielsen from Gridley, and a medical administrator from Chico, and a construction guy from Auburn, who's a member of my church. And we went over there in this project in cooperation with Rotary local clubs over there. We have all signed for the integrity of this money. If this money disappeared and we did not meet the goals, we would be in lots of trouble. And they signed off on it, we made it happen, and we met our goals, so we're happy to do that. So it is my pleasure to introduce to you Augustus Flomo, who is the representative Rotarian from Liberia, also assistant district governor, and in their efforts doing economic development in this project. So Augustus, Gus. Go for it.
Thank you, Dan. Good evening, everyone. I would like to recognize the mayor, Dave Pittman, and all council members, and all of you who are here this evening at this very important meeting. We are very pleased to be here this evening in this very important meeting. As Dan mentioned, I came with my wife and my daughter. My wife is Sissy. My daughter is Gussie. We've been here twice in Oroville. We've stayed right at the house of Dave. 2 times he and his family have accommodated us. So as Dan mentioned, Liberia and the United States come over 200 years of relationship. In fact, the only colony of the U.S. I understand in the world is Liberia. And if you look at what my daughter was, presenting the picture of the flag, it's like the U.S. You have multiple stars, we have only one star, but the colors are the same. Free slaves from here established there in 1822. And beyond that, every diplomatic and foreign policy stance the United States and Liberia, if we will vote along with any country on an international stand, it will be Liberia and the United States. So we have a very, very strong history and long ties, and we always see America as our father or our mother, whichever way. So Dave and ourselves, the mayor, and ourselves, along with his wife, Susan, Dan, and the other team members, we've gotten to know each other through Rotary. And we understand the passion he has for development, because he's flown from here almost 25, 30 hours to go to Liberia to participate in the mission to give hope to many people who otherwise may not have the opportunity to get a kind of hope. In fact, they had just left Liberia in 2014, just before our Ebola crisis. They had come from Liberia, he and his wife, along with Dan and other members, training villagers. They went way into the jungle, where you will find it very difficult to go, very tough terrain, difficult roads. But they sacrificed their time and went there, trained our people about, his wife taught on the medical things. There was one medical doctor on the team, birth nursing, who also participated in the medical training. And that helped rescue a lot of people just by the common knowledge share on hand washing, just before Ebola came up in 2014. So it tells you, for us, beyond government, we have a strong relations, because at that time I was also not in government. We were interacting because we were all Rotarians. Today we are still Rotarians. Now he's mayor of the council here. I am now Deputy Minister for Finance at the Ministry of Finance and Development Planning in my country. So that shows that most of the conversation we had, Dave, about transformation, about change, whether it was in Oroville or it was back in Liberia, I can see that all of us are playing significant role in the decision-making process. So when we heard that you won the mayor position, we were very excited. My wife and I, we went all shouting all in the place when we got the news that you became elected as the mayor of Oroville. Because we know how much passion you've always shared with us. The 2 times we stay at your home, we talk about improvements, life improvement, economic life. How can we get some of the challenges off the way, both in Liberia and here. And we have no doubt that you are going to continue to play that passion, that you had when you were just council member. Now you have the mantle in your hands to work with your colleagues and your team to make great things happen for the people of Oroville. So we from the family, we thought it would be good to bring you a token.
Oh, wow. Wow.
We thought it would be good to bring you a token of our appreciation, our love, and our gratitude, and the happiness, the joy that we got back home when we heard you were elected.
Wow.
And being a government worker myself, I believe that our both governments, which I also work with the development partners, so I work with the U.S. government in Liberia, representing the Liberian government in different development programs. You know, and I know, we still have issues in Liberia on challenges of agriculture, energy, road construction, human capital development, whether it's in health, whether it's in education, whether it's sanitation, water and sanitation, which we are contributed towards. There are challenges all over the place. But we believe that with the relationship and partnership we continue to foster, our stronger relations will help us to be able to continue to impact the lives of our people. So we brought this little this little gift to you, Dave. And if if you don't mind,
Wow.
we'll ask you to please come forward to receive the little gift from us.
This was a surprise.
Yeah.
What we have here?
Yeah, we found it.
Oh, my goodness.
We found it. So, yeah. So we'd like to say, Dave, congratulations to you. We went trying to find a picture.
Oh.
When we say, okay, we're going to find a picture, and we will make the mayor's card and present to him that we appreciate, we are happy that you were elected. And I think the people of Oroville did not make a mistake, because I think you have a lot of value to offer to the city.
Thank you.
Because we've heard you talk about it while we're at home. So we want to say thank you.
Well,
And
thank you.
In Africa, when Dave and Dan and the other team came, we gowned Dave chief in Liberia. He's one of our chiefs there. So, so we decided that at this occasion also, we got to still bring a chief close
I see that.
to show that we still love you, and that the gown we gave you in Liberia when you were there,
I still have it, yeah.
we'll follow it into the U.S. So, Gussie, you want to join us? Okay, pass there. Okay, put your hand here. Stick. Okay. These guys, I'm telling you. I hope it will fit here. It's here at the top here. Oh.
Where are we going?
There we go. Good, good.
We're good.
Good.
Now, we'll need 6 more for the rest of the council.
Yes. So we want to congratulate Dave, and thank you too for considering that he has some value to offer to the city. We trust his ability. We know he has a passion, and we have no doubt, because we have had conversation with him before this time. And so we are pleased. Dave, congratulations.
Thank you. I thank you for this recognition, and really, I want to thank the public, because your support of our organizations were able to put us there. And the end result was huge. Where do I get to hang this?
Need some command strips.
We sneak out.
Thank you both. All of you. We'll see you tomorrow.
Okay. All right, good night, everyone.
Good night. Very nicely done, sir.
Oh, you know what? Gus, you forgot to introduce Cece.
Oh, yeah.
Her title.
Yeah.
So she's a nurse, and it's good to also introduce her. She was working in government before me, so her job is a civil servant job. She's the registrar of all nurses and midwives in Liberia.
Oh, wow.
So she actually issued all the licenses of nurses and midwives working in Liberia in a department. So I just joined her in government. So she's the doyen.
They didn't tell me anything.
Well,
You know?
and they weren't supposed to.
No. One of the things I should mention too is we were there for clean water, health and sanitation, and then Ebola broke out. And we had to switch gears to fight Ebola, which
Yeah.
a difficult chore. But again, I want to say the public's help and funds donated created the situation where we had recorded savings of about 72,000.
Excellent.
Okay. enough of this stuff. Let's, next item on the agenda is public communication hearing of non-agenda items. Do we have any speakers?
Mr. Mayor, I do have 3 non-agenda item speakers. Our first speaker is Linda Draper.
Hi.
Hi.
It's nice to see you, Mayor Pittman,
Thank you.
and the council as well. Nice to see you all. I'm Linda Draper, and I do live here in Oroville. Mayor, at the last meeting, Bill Spear made some remarks about Janet Goodson. And instead of contacting her directly to hear her side of it, he jumped to conclusions and lied. And that's defamation of character. Spear said that she had disqualified herself to be vice mayor because she was an admin for a Facebook group and that she had blocked him and about a dozen others. He also alleged she'd made inappropriate comments about members of the city council, and he said she should apologize, and that would be a cure for what she had done. So I'd like to set this record straight. I'm a member of Oroville Concerned Citizens, and we did work to help elect David Pittman, Art Hatley, and Natalie Sheard. And there were and are about 110 members of our group, and I was asked to create a Facebook page that would enable us to place campaign signs, answer questions, and share information. And I did that on August 16th of 2022, and it will remain inactive until the next election in 2024. Now, the group description is as follows. The purpose of the group is so people in Oroville who are concerned about our local government can share their concerns, find common ground with others, and work toward creating the kind of town that we can all be proud of. We are actively working to help elect David Pittman as mayor, and Art Hatley and Natalie Sheard for city council, and August Lincoln for city treasurer. Now, the description of the group was clear. So why do you think Bill Spear and others who didn't support our candidates wanted to be in the group? I'll leave you to figure that out. I was the sole admin, except for a day or so when I added Councilor Goodson, and I had not asked her if she wanted to do it. I knew she was in the group, and I felt maybe she would help out. And I did not even ask her. So when she called and asked me to remove her, I was happy to do that. At no time did she make negative remarks about anyone who was on the council. So I am the one who blocked about a dozen people. I won't share their names except that one of them was Bill Spear, along with other well-known Reynolds supporters. And this group was never a political discussion group. It was always a campaign group, and that was it. So Spear lied about Councilor Goodson in order to encourage the council to vote for Smith
We're running
as
out of
vice
Time.
Time.
Oh, am I out?
Yeah.
Oh, drat.
Sorry.
I would just encourage maybe
Thank you.
so that we don't hear just one voice.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Bill Spear.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council, come here to pray. Thank you, Jesus. Lord, we thank you for your grace and your mercy in our lives. We thank you for all that you're doing. We thank you for this evening and the agenda before us, and we pray that you would guide us, that you would be the light of our path and the lamp of our feet, that you would give us that supernatural wisdom to make wise decisions and to do the jobs that you've called us to do. We continue to lift up the rescue mission and thank you for them and the movement that you were doing on the rescue mission. For in your word, it says, what we've done to the least of these, we've done unto you. And we come alongside and lift up. Also the Hope Center, and we thank you for them and their continuing sowing into on the front line of the issues and the problems that are in our community. We thank you for the Rotary and the testimony of how you use them to make a difference in faraway places and save lives. Thank you for all of the different nonprofits, all of the service clubs, all of the churches that you use, Lord, not only in our city, but you use us all around the world, and the list goes on and on and on. Our police force, the fire, our code enforcement who are out on the front lines. And I pray for all of them, our city council members, for their families, that as they pour out in their lives, that you would use them, that you protect them, that you would encourage them. In your word, it says that you are our shepherd and that our cups overflow, and I pray for an overflowing of our cup. We also pray for truth. We pray, in your word it says, we'll know the truth, and the truth will set us free. And so we thank you for your truth. We thank you for your guidance. We say this evening, your kingdom come, your will be done. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir.
Our next speaker is the cameraman.
Good evening, Oroville City Council. Boy, I feel we kind of need a boxing bell up here after that last. I felt that tension in the room. But anyways, I am the cameraman for the new people on board. I believe we may have not have talked personally, but I'm sure we've all seen our faces around here in our community. Independent investigative journalist, not afraid of my name, just that's my moniker, if you will. Easy to find on YouTube, all one word, the cameraman. You know, I may not be on the regular 5 o'clock news like our other gentlemen here today, but we do see each other. It's been a year, but you know, we do cross paths on our line of work. I may not be always filming what he's filming, but we do see each other, and his rights are just as important as mine, as the same as yours, because we all have the right to freedom of the press. Do not forget that. Anyways, just a couple things in public comment. I'm still waiting on some videos, the public records request. Editing company, hopefully they'll get it soon. This is pretty much the last public comment I'm going to make in regards to that until I get some video, because it's just, you know, a dead horse I don't want to keep beating, but still want it known that it's still out there, since I did make comment of it at my last comment when I was at the last regular meeting on the 6th. And finally here, my question is, now that we have the new council and mayor, I know our last mayor, Mr. Reynolds, we had a constitutional republic, our city was declared, and we had like the whole Vice News and everybody declared and come in and all this, and like it was a big show. And after the change in government, if you will, I didn't see any news reports like we got a new dictator of the constitutional republic or something like that. So I'm just wondering, are we still a constitutional republic? Is that still a thing, or is that something we're not doing with the new leadership, if you will, for as the other news like to report it as? But what's up with that? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, that is the last of the non-agenda item speakers.
Okay, we'll be moving on to consent calendar, but before we move there, with your discretion, Mr. Reynolds, I would like to take a moment of silence for Ernie's passing, if we may. So I'll take a moment of silence for 60 seconds, please. Thank you all. Appreciate that. Next item is the consent calendar. Any comments for the consent calendar from council? Councilman Thompson.
Yes, I'd like to pull number 6.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I'd also like to pull number 9.
And Mr. Mayor, we have a public speaker for item 10.
All right. Anyone else? So I'd entertain a motion for the consent calendar with items 6, 9, and 10.
So moved.
Second?
Call roll, please.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Councilman Thompson, let's start with number 6.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Good evening.
Good evening. Yeah, if you can just clarify to those that are in the audience what item number 6 is.
These are some cybersecurity upgrades. So we are, with our cyber insurance, there's some check boxes that we have to abide by to maintain our cyber insurance, but also most importantly, just to keep our network safe. And so what these items are is endpoint protection. You can't really use just standard antivirus anymore. So that is an increase. It's kind of got artificial intelligence behind it. Can monitor our network, things that move back and forth between computers, and can create a silo very quickly so that whatever the infection may be, if it does get in, it won't move to other devices on the network. The second part of in here, the Dell MDR. So what that is part of the insurance as well, is 24/7, 365 monitoring of these security pieces. So they've got a full team of cybersecurity specialists that if something happens any time of the day, they can very quickly see what's going on, triage it, let us know what we need to do to go after whatever that device is that may be infected. But also, when the breach does happen, if we have to have legal action, they also have the legal parts in there to help us out through that process. And the third one is just cybersecurity assessment. Things are changing so quick in the cyber realm today that it's hard to keep up with. And with a small team of IT here in the city, just requesting to have the assessment come through, take a look at our network, see if we're missing anything. If we are, give us a roadmap of where we need to go. So that's pretty much what's in here right now.
Thank you. If I can.
Yeah, please do. Go ahead.
So I just I like tech, and I'm a tech guy. Just so what kind of data? This covers our city council, our internal systems, but also the police department. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
And the fire department.
Fire department now is managed by CAL FIRE,
Okay.
so their devices are not part of what we protect.
So have we had many security breaches in the past?
No. No, we've been able to implement, and I think the biggest one that we have is a while back we implemented Know Before, which is a cybersecurity training. And so we actually intentionally send out phishing emails or other things to people within our organization just to make sure who might be clicking on certain things or who might not. And if they are, there's training behind it. But also we're putting out training every so often just in general, just to help people, because we can put up all the security in the world, but if someone clicks on an email or something like that, it can get past a lot of those securities. So training the end users is a big thing.
So because I have a lot of confidence in you and your team, what does this, because you guys do as well, security, like you said, you do tests and
Yes.
and check the system and whatnot. So I'm just curious as far as what this necessarily adds that you guys can't or don't already do? Because it's just a high, I mean, $80,000.
Right. The biggest part of this is going to be that Dell MDR. So it's that security team that sits in the background who takes all the information off of what we've implemented, and they're watching this. They're paying attention to what's going on, and if something's flagged, they can jump on there. You know, if it's 2 a.m. in the morning and I'm asleep, something gets flagged, they can very quickly take care of it. And for myself, I may not even know about it till I get up the next day, and by that time, it could have taken out the entire network. So that's really a big part of it, is to have that extra, in a sense, staff sitting behind, watching what's going on, because it's becoming scary out there with these kinds of things. I mean, I've been able to change things, implement security, those kinds of things, and and be happy about where we are at. But things are changing so rapidly at this point. This took me a while to be price tag as well. You know, you're looking at something like that, but it's kind of becoming the necessary to have someone watching this, especially even with cyber insurance. They want that monitoring 24/7.
So, is this it's getting late. My brain's been a long day.
That's all right.
This is not an annual thing, right?
No, this is a 4-year on that amount.
So 20 grand typically about a year.
Yeah, and actually this was cheaper than a lot of the other ones I was looking at. They were over 30,000 a year for the other ones.
Okay, that's all my questions.
Councilman Goodson.
Yes, what happens to the monitoring tool after 4 years?
So the monitoring tool, we would just renew it at that point, or look
For an
into
additional cost of how much?
whatever the cost is at that point in time.
And so can you give us a guesstimation of what that is?
I would guess that, most products in the tech industry go up 3 to 5% each year.
Okay,
So this one isn't really a product. It's people who are watching.
Staff.
Yeah, staff. There is a piece of software behind it as well that's helping them bring in all that data out of our.
and there's always a continuous upgrade on that
Yes.
software.
Yes.
All right, so not just staff, but we would be covering that additional cost of the upgrade.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
So once this one would be good for 4 years, nothing additional. But at that 4-year mark, we would just renew a contract to maintain that, or we would move on to another product.
Right. With this technology, things consistently, you buy a phone in 1 minute, they've already done an upgrade. So this could actually be obsolete, and then we might have to go back to ground zero.
I mean, there's
I
always
mean,
that
it's-
possibility.
Right,
Yes.
there's always that possibility.
But there are a couple leaders in the industry right now, and these are those. So I don't foresee them going away. I actually foresee them getting stronger in the way
All
that
right, that's
they're
good,
going.
good to hear.
And-
Thank
and
you.
Mr. Mayor and council members, if I could also interject, I'll give the flip side of this coin that
Mm-hmm.
he's not telling you. The cost of not doing this may be incredibly expensive if you have a breach
Right.
of
That's
security. And there have been some public agencies that have had all of their information encrypted, and then, of course, it's held for ransom.
For ransom.
And so the cost of not doing this far outweighs the cost of doing this upgrade.
That's good advice.
All right, thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to steal your thunder.
No, that's good. Thank you.
Councilperson Rigg.
Thank you. I have 2 questions. My first question is you discussed our cybersecurity insurance. Are you aware of any increases in our premiums or possible loss of coverage if we didn't move forward with this kind of coverage?
Yes, and actually, each of these that we implement can actually help us reduce our insurance premiums.
Great. Thank you. And then my second question is in honor of Councilmember Hatley. I see that this is coming from the local fiscal recovery funds. And how much is available in that account?
Excuse me, I knew that was coming when it got pulled off consent, so I pulled up my little
Train them
worksheet.
well.
So the city got over $4 million for the local fiscal recovery funds, and to date, we've spent $685,000.
Thank you.
And I would also like to interject that the cost of not doing this is very high. Every time I go to a conference, this is one of the main subjects that always come up. And they said that governments are the most the
Susceptible.
worst targets because we're under protected and we are big, large payouts. So they're even able to computer generate your boss on a Teams meeting asking you to do a wire transfer. They're getting very good. Every day, they're coming up with something different to come at us. And I do not want to see us lose any kind of money to these people.
Councilperson Johnston. Push till the red's gone.
Fine. There we go. There we go. I'm learning. Thank you. So this may have been addressed already, but so this is over 4 years, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So what types of changes do you see happening? You had mentioned that changes are happening consistently and pretty regularly. So does this include security upgrades throughout those 4 years' time with
Yes.
all the changes? Okay.
Yeah, so anything that happens with these products, they will be upgraded within this cost, no extra cost. But a lot of what's changing now is artificial intelligence. So instead of having something you're looking for that's a virus definition, they're actually watching the behavior of the network. And so that's only getting better, and they can learn our network and how our network functions, and any small minute detail that happens that's out of whack, they shut it down.
Anyone else with questions? One question I have, do we have in our city policies and procedures a cybersecurity, button, list of things for the employees to understand that we should be doing? And in other words, I know some have said to me we shouldn't take zip drives from work home and that kind of thing. And I don't know if we have a detail in that, or maybe this company's going to make those suggestions for us.
Yeah, they will be making some of those suggestions. We have some policies, and I'm actually in the process of updating some of those as well. There's a lot of digital media, even on the PD side, digital evidence, those kinds of things that we're doing some changes and going to be putting forth a policy that helps people understand what they should.
And I only mention it because it's easy to say, oh, let me take that home and I'll do it at home and that kind of thing. And I just don't want to expose us to something that we shouldn't. So I appreciate that. That'd be good to have in policy.
If I could add something, the training that is put on, the know before, or it's annual throughout our employees, it's really good. It educates you and understand what not to do. And really good training. I actually took some this morning. So.
All right, cool. Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Tyson.
Yes.
Mr. Attorney, I understand we need to undo the consent vote that just occurred.
Yes, we do.
Certainly.
Yes, we do, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. We have item number 3. There's a council member that does have a financial conflict of interest that needs to be disclosed. And so we need to unwind that action and then go and have the recusal on the record, and then go ahead and redo the adoption of the agenda with all of those other items except for number 3, 6, 9, and 10.
Okay.
And then again, item number 3 can be dealt with separately with the individual recused.
Okay.
And then we proceed from there.
Do we need to make a motion to undo?
I think procedurally, Scott, isn't it that the person who made the motion has to reconsider since you have voted in the affirmative, and then the second, and I think we're good to go.
There you go.
Yeah.
So
It works.
It's reconsidered based upon.
A motion to reconsider the consent items minus 3, 6, 9, and 10.
Okay.
So moved.
Then does the person,
Right.
So moved.
whoever
And
the
then
second
prior to
is.
the vote, we're going to ask the conflict to step out of the room. Is that right?
Well, no.
We will when we get to that point.
Okay.
Not this vote.
Yeah, you're not
but,
there yet.
All right.
Not there
Okay.
yet.
Sorry.
All right.
Right
Thank
now,
you.
everything's okay to.
So who's
Yeah.
the second on the reconsider?
Who was the second? Was that Councilmember
Janet.
Goodson?
Janet
Or
was-
read the motion?
Motion second, yeah.
Janet was the motion. Who is the, I'm sorry, Councilperson Goodson is the motion, and Councilperson Thompson is the second?
Sure.
All right.
That sounds.
That works.
All right, so make sure we can record it.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
And for the, just again, I'll reiterate the rule because some individuals, council members are new on this one. The FPPC has regulations on conflicts of interest. And when someone has a family member, close family member, or in this instance, a spouse who works for the entity that is a subject of the action, or the company or the nonprofit that is a subject of the action, it does require a disclosure of that and recusal. And in this instance, Councilmember Weber contacted me asking if he needed to recuse himself on this item, and I did let him know he did.
Yeah.
And so I missed that it was in the consent, and I apologize to you. That was my fault. So that is on the record. Now, anytime there is a recusal, it does require that the council member be outside of the room or outside of the view of the council members. So we'll go ahead and ask you to leave the room while they take a vote on that item, and then we'll come and get you in just a minute.
Thank you, Mr. LeGrone, for bringing this point up so we make sure we got it right. Thank you. So the motion.
So now we need a motion.
I motion to approve item number 3.
Second.
I have a question.
Sure.
This was, so, and maybe Alan can appreciate that, the quickness. But I did have a question about the budget. And maybe, if we could maybe have Alan just speak to that just for a moment.
Mr. Mayor, I do have him listed as a speaker if this item got pulled.
Okay.
And also, we have Susie Cockham's online. She's the consultant for.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it would just be good to have a quick conversation, and I missed it too. I thought it was on business, so I apologize.
So did I. Yeah.
But
Welcome, Alan.
so just real quick, Alan, I was in reviewing of this current action. So I saw quite a few staffing positions, and you know that this was funded for 24 months in a lot of cases, and so you know immediately, and I'm not opposed to that per se, but what I'm just concerned about, and I'd just like to hear from you, and for the public record, as to sustainability. You know, anytime you staff up, you know, it's really important, as you well know, any of us in business, that there's some thought into the sustainability piece beyond that. And then I also understand there was some good news too in the COC, potentially. So I don't know how that all plays into this, but anyway, I think I've said enough.
Yeah, it all kind of ties in a little bit to you. First of all, we are going to be hiring employees on a limited term basis. So it's based upon the grant. When the grant runs out, if there is not another grant to replace that, it will not, we will have to, it will be part of the contract, and our employees will understand that we're not going to be able to sustain that. We are entering a new realm at the rescue mission. Since 1964, we have been pretty much donor-based and based upon all of the gifts in kind and the well support of the community. But to be able to move forward, we need to have state and federal funding, and so we're stepping into that realm right now. It's kind of it's actually not kind of, it is a new, a total new thing for us, and so we are very optimistic. As like you said today, COC did award another grant for us that will help with the Esperanza project, and we believe that with the help of Susie Cockham's and the team here at that city, that we'll be able to continue to move forward and learn more about this and be able to not get us into positions where we regret it.
What was the COC grant? What was the dollar amount?
I'm not sure. I know what I applied for. I'm hoping we applied for $100,000, and I'm hoping that's what was granted. I'm not for sure. We haven't got that part yet.
Okay, thank you.
So.
Eric, any more?
No, very good. Thank you, Alan.
Okay.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve agenda item 3.
So moved.
So moved?
It was already
I was already, oh, that's right. I'm
Moved and
sorry.
seconded.
You're right.
That's right. Go for it.
waiting for
We're
the
ready for a
vote.
vote.
Motion carries with 6 yeses and 1 recused.
Thank you. Did you get our councilman back in here? Thank you. All right, we looked at step 6. Item number 9.
Mr. Mayor, we need to vote on item number 6. It was never voted on.
Oh, okay.
I motion that we approve item number 6.
Second?
So motion second for item number 6 to pass. Calling for the vote?
Sorry. Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Thank you. Now we're ready for item number 9.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council and community members. This item, I just wanted to bring it to the council's attention. This is not new equipment that has come before you tonight for consideration. This is a collaboration of all of the items that have been approved by the council previously over the last probably 18, 24, 30 months. We just had a very difficult time obtaining those items from different suppliers due to supply chain issues and other various issues. So I thought it was important that we bring this back to the council so that as this new council moves forward, it's aware of the equipment that had previously been authorized. Some of this equipment will be arriving shortly. Some is being built, but it is all out there. This has previously been approved in the fiscal year's budgets for our various departments that are listed in here. The police cars are actually on a rail car in New Mexico now, all with the exception of 2. There was a price increase in the cars. Ford Motor Company, not the local Ford dealer, raised the price on these vehicles. Our local Ford dealer did try to get Ford to honor the pricing that they gave us in 2020, I believe, but Ford was not on board for that, and pretty much the answer was, if you don't want them, there's a lot of other people out there that do. So they raised the price of them about $7,000 each car. So there was a price adjustment in there for that. So this is just to recap for our community that, hey, this is not all sorts of new spending all of a sudden. This is spending that has been previously authorized. We're just finally getting close to getting our hands on these products.
Any questions, council? Councilperson Johnstone.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you. I see there's 14 Ford Explorer police interceptors.
Yes.
What will we be doing with the current vehicles that we are in use right now once those come?
Once we get those, we're going to reassess our fleet. Right now, we have 5 hybrids that are mixed into there. They're not working for patrol purposes, so those will be pushed back into our overall city fleet somewhere else and utilized by the city until they reach their life's end. Then we are going to reassess our fleet. We've been very hesitant to do anything because we just haven't been able to get cars. So once we do that, we're going to look and we're going to remove I don't know if it's going to be an equivalent number of vehicles from our fleet, but we're going to move a considerable number of them. You'll probably not see any more Crown Vics. Those will probably all go away. And then, we will start removing the older stuff from our fleet. So we will look at that because we have to pare it down. We just can't we don't have enough parking. So that's kind of what you'll see is the selling off. I'm thinking the Crown Vics, I'll have someone reach out to Butte College and see if they're interested for their training program out there for their skid pan and things like that because they're usable. They have some life left in them. And, there's nothing better than a loose front end and a lot of power on a skid pan to teach you how to control the car.
All right.
Put water down, slide around.
Any other questions for agenda item number 9? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we authorize the purchase of the vehicles and equipment that have been listed and that have already been approved in the 2022 and 2023 fiscal year budgets.
Second.
I'll call the vote.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Thank you. Item number 10. Who's?
Mr. Mayor, the cameraman requested to speak on this item.
Oh, okay.
Good evening again, Oroville City Council. I'm just asking that you guys approve item 10. I believe it's a very beneficial item to the city. I think this is going to be our third year of doing this now. Each time I've seen, great outcome at the museums, and I think it really brings people to our community to educate them and show the history and what we've got here and what Oroville's about. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Entertain a motion for item number 10.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Let's call a vote. Thank you.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Thank you all. Now we'll move to regular business. Item number 11 is the authorization to purchase a Graco line laser airless striping machine for Streets Division. Oh,
Good evening, Mayor Pittman and council members. Don Nevers, Community Development Department. This is a request to purchase the Graco line laser airless striping machine to complete the necessary striping of the city's roadways. Back in 2013, the city and the Butte County Public Works entered into a mutual aid agreement to expand and add maintenance and assistance with traffic signals, sealing and patching, and striping of the community's roadways. In recent years, following many disasters, product shortages and price increases, mutual aid between the city and Butte County has declined. And you'll see that within our roadways and the degradation of the striping. Staff conducted research of various striping machines and has selected the Graco line laser machine as the best option for the city's roadways. This unit is large enough to accommodate our needs, but won't be exorbitant in cost. The city of Red Bluff has the same unit, and staff recently visited Red Bluff for a demonstration, and Red Bluff has conveyed that they are very satisfied with this machine. The machine has 3 spray guns that paint up to 1, 2, and 3 stripes at a time. It's a self-propelled and laser-guided machine. It also comes with an automatic bead dispenser, which reduces the need for an additional employee dispensing the bead following the dispense of the paint. The overall goal is to restripe all of our streets within the next 1 to 2 years after having received the machine. The machine will spray paint or paint up to 40 miles of roadway a week, depending on the number of stripes being laid down. And the obstacles within the roadway. Our streets are heavily traveled and require more painting more frequently, especially, again, with the increase of disasters and the migration of the outlying residents to the Oroville area, as well as the disaster recovery crews that have come to our community. Staff received 3 price quotes for this machine, and the lowest being from Sherman-Williams at $40,397. There's currently no funding allocated for this because we had the mutual aid agreement in place with Butte County. Also, staff is seeking quotes for a full-size striping truck. However, there is no build slots currently available, so no pricing is currently available. But we are working with a company out of Idaho and a company out of Montana, I believe. Yeah. And so the fading striping of our roadways, and this is a large safety concern, especially in the darker evening hours and during inclement weather. It makes it very difficult to see the lines on the roadways. Also, staff will be scraping up the ceramic yellow dots and replacing them with the new standard reflective markers. So that will be in addition to the new striping. With that, staff is requesting to purchase the unit for $48,477. And I ask for an additional $20,000 because as we request a purchase amount, sure enough, it goes up in price. So we're just asking for a 20% increase, just so we have a cap. If it does exceed that, we will come back to council.
gotcha.
And so again, we request authorization to purchase the Graco line laser airless striper in addition to coming back with price quotes for a larger striping truck.
Mr. Mayor, if the council would also like to consider, we would like authorization to place that order for the larger truck and get into the build process with them to get in line. We don't know what that cost is going to be. I imagine we can always cancel that because like Ford told us, if we don't want it, somebody else will.
Yeah.
But we'd also like authorization for, and I, you know, what I'm honestly thinking in my head is an amount not to exceed $500,000. I know that's a lot of money, but you know, if a backhoe costs us $350,000, I'm sure that I'm guessing somewhere in the right area. But we won't make that expenditure or spend those dollars until such time as we bring that back to you. But we do want to get into that build line as soon as we can if the council feels that this is a worthwhile purchase. I mean, in my opinion, this is a piece of safety equipment that the city needs. It's a public safety issue. Our lines are worn. They're very difficult. I thought it was just me, but I'm glad to hear that it's everybody else is having, I'm not glad that everybody's having a difficult time seeing them, but I understand the need in our community, and this is a public safety issue, I believe, in our roadways.
Appreciate that. Councilperson Riggs.
Thank you. My first question was, I know that there's also an issue with the supply chain regarding paint. Did you factor in the purchase of paint with this product? or-
Yes, we did, and we still currently have some paint in our supplies in the yard, and this paint is the same paint that would be used in this new piece of machinery.
Great, thank you. I had my second question is a matter of clarity. Beads, what are those?
The reflective beads.
Bumps?
Yeah, no, they're little, it's powdered beads, it's powdered glass. And so that gets thrown into the striping, so you can see it in the evening hours when your car lights shine on it.
Thank you.
It's what makes it reflective.
Yeah.
The more you know.
And also with the paint truck, it's a two-part purchase. You have to purchase the chassis, and depending on the make of the chassis, then you can price out the paint rig that goes on that chassis.
Gotcha. Councilperson Johnstone.
Thank you.
Just real quick, what do you even know the life expectancy of what the machine, the striping machine would be?
I don't have that information offhand, but I can provide that to you.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Thompson.
Thank you. I personally would like to hold off on the talk of the truck. I'm going to see how this performs, because this might be sufficient, and we can go from there. I mean, 300, even if it's 300,000, that's 6 of these machines.
Yes, and we did speak with Sherman-Williams. Once we secure the purchase order and a build slot, it takes up to 3 days if they have the parts on hand, and so we could have it within a week or so. And so if we have a good stretch of nice sunny weather, we can get to striping much faster.
Councilperson, or Vice Mayor Smith.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with Councilman Thompson on that. It'd be nice to see how this machine performs before we make a much more substantial investment. Also, maybe you can expand on other projects that, we have parking lots. There's other, possibilities. Obviously it would have to be city-owned.
Yes.
But maybe we can provide a service to the county. Who knows?
And the mutual aid agreement goes both ways.
It certainly does. And then additionally, I'm thinking in terms of, a lot of the work that obviously our roads need, slurry sealing. In other words, you'd put out a schedule. I'm thinking that machine's going to get a lot more use than what has been presented. Just, thinking about the challenges that our roads have and thinking of the projects that are up and coming. But I think that machine's going to be well used. And I appreciate Councilman Weber for making this suggestion right up front. So I appreciate that. I think it's a good move.
And Councilman Riggs.
And Councilwoman Riggs. Thank you. Yes.
All right.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Weber?
No, thank you. So, training. Does the company that we purchased this from provide some sort of training so we know exactly how to operate it?
They will provide training, yes.
Okay. All right. And I'm in agreement with waiting on the truck for now, and we can see how this performs. Because if it's 40 miles a week under optimal conditions, obviously, and we've got approximately 135 miles of roadway, I think we could do quite a bit of damage,
Yes.
well, not damage, but productivity. When I was campaigning, this was one of the surprise elements of the campaign was hearing the constituents bring this up. So all along Montgomery, anybody that drives that at night in District F anyway, that's a very dark, and I know that if we had those lines, that would be extremely helpful. And also, I just wanted to take the time to, yes, thank you, Councilman Riggs, for assisting with getting this on the agenda, and thank you for bringing it, because this, I think this is an easy, this is like a slam dunk for us to do, to get some stuff that's very visible and have the community know that we're moving in a really good direction. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. You're welcome.
Anyone else? I'll chime in on that too, because the agreement with the county has been kind of overused for a long time, and they also do Paradise, and it's really difficult for them to help us out. And the only probably we're going to need them is painting the green line. That's a little different.
We can use this for that as
Okay.
well.
Very good, excellent. All right, any public comment?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any public speakers on this item.
Okay. I would entertain a motion then.
Well, I move.
Call for the vote.
I'm sorry, I missed the first and second.
Here we go.
because Bill was talking to me.
All right.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Thank you all, and thanks staff for coming up with the report back. I appreciate that.
Mr. Mayor, who was the first and the second on that? I'm sorry, we missed it.
First, second.
Okay.
Sean's first.
Okay. Thank you.
And item number 12, physical, mental, emotional fitness program.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council, and community members. This item is a issue that is important in law enforcement, but also is important for our entire city. One of the things that we have to do as we care for our employees is care for their mental, their emotional, and their physical well-being. In law enforcement, which I can speak to because that's the part of the organization I represent, many of the items that come, if not all, are negative. The environment is negative, the issues that people are experiencing are negative, and we're looked to help them either solve those issues, move those through those persons through those issues, or get them to the people that can help them. Oftentimes, those negative issues tend to pile onto the individual, and those issues are more often than not pushed down and held within the person. And if there's not some way to release that or to do something with that anxiety, that negativity, that stress that's built with that, people tend to look to negative ways to deal with that. That's where alcoholism, I'm going to say intermittent rage disorder. I don't know if there is any such thing, but I like to make that up and explain that's what I suffer from time to time. But, there's those issues. There is a lack of impulse control that comes from that. There's health issues that come from that. There's PTSD that builds up in individuals, and we lose people in our profession because some way or another, they will act out to deal with that emotional and physical stress that they're feeling, and it will impede their career and oftentimes end it because of those behaviors. We have to provide some way for our employees to deal with that. We have to have a wellness plan for our employees to allow them to have that release that they have. It's been a well-known thing in the fire service for many, many years. It's part of their contract that for 1 hour per day they will work out. A lot of that comes back to that there is this reality out there that the stress builds up, the anxiety builds up. Sometimes the job is sedentary. Sometimes the job is very demanding physically. It's that same way for our police officers. There's times that it's very sedentary. One thing that you commonly see in law enforcement is you'll see young, thin cops come to work. 2 years later, you'll look at them and you go, what happened? I mean, I can tell you exactly what happens. As you enter the profession, you're probably in the best health of your life. Once you get into the profession, it becomes a sedentary job at times. I mean, there are times that, it is explosive and things have to happen right away, and they do. But there's a lot of times where there's not a lot going on. You're bored, so you're eating. You're sitting typing for many hours, doing those types of things. Law enforcement is not what you see on television where you see cops or anything like that. They cherry pick the 10 minutes of adrenaline or the 10% of the adrenaline, and they make a 30-minute show out of that, and that's what it is. That is not police work. It can be very sedentary. It can be very dull at times because there's just not a lot going on. So it's important that we provide this physical outlet, and we, as far as I'm concerned, once we get our staffing correct, I am going to work with our HR department, should the council allow this, and I'm going to compel our cops to go to the gym. I mean, to do something to stay in shape, to be physically ready to perform when the time becomes necessary. Because if you're confident of yourself, you're confident of your abilities, and you're confident, you project that confidence by being in shape, the less likelihood you're going to have some sort of a confrontation with someone, more often than not. So what I'm asking for here essentially is the ability to have gym memberships for our department, to send them to the gym, to require them to work out, to keep themselves in shape, to give them the opportunity to work out their mental and emotional issues that come from the job, the stressors, the anxiety, the things that come from that. Give them a positive way to do that. That's positive for our organization. It will help with our workman comp issues that we have. I've had way too many, and I'm going to call them ticky-tacky injuries with I've twisted my knee, my back, things like that from several of our individuals. It's nothing negative about them or anything, but I think if you were regularly doing some of these other things and strengthening your core, we wouldn't necessarily have those types of issues. One workman's comp issue will easily pay for this per year. So if we can avoid even just one, we'll do that. It also helps with retention and recruitment. Right now, we have no workout facility. Our sheriff, they have one. I mean, so if you're equally comparing places to work and it's like this place provides me a workout facility, this one does not, well, we're going to lose if that's important to those individuals looking for those jobs. It also sends the message to our employees that, not only do we need you to work here, but we do care about you. We care about your overall health and well-being. We care about your emotion. We care about your mental well-being. So it's important to us. I did look at building a gym, adding on to our facility, and it was one of those deals that, I started thinking, man, we've just sunk all this money into this place, and now the next best thing to do is to immediately tear it apart and to add something else. Well, we don't have any space. We're out of space. In order for me to build something, I would have to put up a new building, and by the time I got that done at the prevailing wage rates and the things that we must pay, I'd be looking at over $1 million. And then once I get it built, now I got to put the equipment inside of it. I got to have trainers there, or have some sort of a contract with somebody to come in and contract train. I become responsible for the equipment. I become responsible for a lot of different things that would go along with this facility. So as I looked at it and evaluated it, if I were to do that, I can buy this into this membership program for 40 years before I pay for that gym. So it makes more economic sense to do that. Now, the reason why we looked at NS Fit is because they're not only local, but they're also in Chico, Yuba City, and different areas. So that will allow our personnel that don't necessarily live in Oroville to also go to a gym that is in the community in which they live. So that is the reason why we looked outside of that. So what we're asking for is council authorization to expend an amount not to exceed $17,400. That would include all the 50 memberships that I'm talking about, would include all of the staff members of the police department. Now I'm going to go a step further, and I'm going to suggest to the council and the other department heads can make their feelings known on this, but I think this is something that is important to our entire city. I think this is important for all of our employees, because regardless of the environment, if we can prevent these small ticky-tacky injuries that we get, this will pay for itself. I mean, this is something that'll be important. This is a retention tool. This is a recruitment tool. And so, if the rest of the department heads would like to weigh in, that's fine. If the council has any questions, I'd be more than willing to answer those for the council.
Thank you for the presentation. Councilperson Thompson.
I think there's Weber's on there.
Weber?
No,
Yeah, he did.
There we go.
There we go. Thank you.
Yeah, the main question I have is in regards to if it's automatic for our employees. Is this plan automatic just to pay for them, even people that are saying, I have no plan to go to the gym?
No, what I did is I approached this from an all-in position, and then I'm going to reassess it each month, and I'm going to look at who's using it. My goal here is that I want to compel my police officers, my dispatchers, and my MLEs to go. I mean, I want it to be part of our contractual agreement that you will spend an hour there. So once we get to that point, we can reassess that. But I intend on reassessing this on a month-to-month basis and sizing this appropriately, because I don't want to be paying for something that, I want to pay for 50 and have 10 people going. I mean, I want to make sure that this is sized appropriately.
Yeah, it's the beginning of the year, so this is where gym memberships see a spike.
Correct.
And then, come March, February.
It's inconvenient.
So I would be more inclined, I'm all for the concept, absolutely. I'm just not in favor of throwing money at something that has no intention from the recipient to actually use. So I'd be more inclined to have it as an option, that if they want to sign up. And I would actually recommend that we have this amount in an account and be used for a gym of their choice, not to exceed a certain amount. If a person has a gym that's right down the street, they're like, well, I don't like NS Fit, but if you had it for this one, I'd use it because it's right around the corner. And so if we had it in just an account and said, not to exceed a certain amount, I think that would be a better idea, in my opinion.
I think that we get into an area where we're going to be negotiating at that point if it's individual choice. I mean, and the reason why we went with NS Fit is because we had a corporate rate, which is a reduced rate for what you normally would pay.
But still, if you do all in and 50% actually use it, you have 50% that's sitting there that could be used, for somebody else. And so if there's a designated amount per officer or MLE or staff, I think it's a great concept. But then it just added into their pay. This is just the your allotment to pay for your gym membership, and then
that becomes a negotiation issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that we're going to get into MOUs and things
If
like that.
If I was an employee,
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, if I was an employee, I have gym preferences and whatnot.
Right.
And the idea is to incentivize them to use a gym, even if it is an NS Fit. So even if it, comes down to it and people were all in and it cost us, 18, 20,000, and these guys actually, took advantage of it because it was, they had more preference and choice on gym. Again, the value is to get them to the gym. So if it means, not NS Fit, then let's do that.
Well, and here's why it becomes a negotiation issue, is because it becomes part of a benefit and it becomes disparate compensation. If I don't want to go to the gym, but you want to go to the gym and you're getting $40 extra a month, and I'm doing the same work that you are, why do you get $40? And then what we end up is we do end up paying everybody $40 regardless if they go to the gym or not. So I think, I'm hearing what you're saying, and if you would like us to negotiate that into their MOUs, we can certainly, take that as one of the things that we would consider or negotiate with them at when that time comes. What we could do on something like this is an amount not to exceed. So what we can do is we can say, put out a general email to begin with, who all is going to go, figure out what that number is, do that, and then if it exceeds that, then we will, or if it's 35 people, we'll only do 35. If it, goes above that, then we'll move up. If it goes below that, then we'll move it down.
Yeah, I like that idea better. Put the email out, who's interested, and then you negotiate the contract with NS Fit based on those number of employees as opposed to signing it all up, including those who are like, good luck with that. I have no intention of joining in.
Right. The 50 comes from me because what I did, I just counted everybody and I said, okay, this is it. But I really want to hammer home that I want to compel the police officers to do this once we get staffed appropriately. What I mean by that is I want to tell them that the last hour of your shift, you're going to go to the gym and you are going to physically condition yourself for this type of work. That is, and I would love to, I want to negotiate that into the contract so that it's not going to be easy. And there will be those that kick and scream, but I think this is good for them, and we need to drag them to that if that's necessary.
If I could add too, there's a fitness for duty policy within our department, and I know a lot of agencies that allow their employees to work out prior to their shift, and that is a huge benefit. Also, working out. A lot of people understand if you get hurt, you heal a lot quicker. Your ability to focus during traumatic situations is so much better. It makes a big difference to exercise.
And I know the FBI recently did like a 10-year study where they contacted individuals in prisons that attacked police officers. And it had nothing to do with gender or race. It was just individuals that attacked police officers. And a lot of the attacks occurred because the officer looked sloppy. He was not in shape. And then on the flip side of that, the officers that were in shape, that handled themselves in a professional manner, the suspect gave in to the arrest versus fighting with the officer. So I think, and it's a huge study. It's really, I think it's really important that we push this. I think it's paramount that people should have to work out, and I believe prior to the shift, not after, but that's just me.
Okay. Councilperson Riggs, please.
Did you look into any cost saving from a medical benefits perspective? I know that many places, if you have such a program, it'll actually reduce the premiums that the employers have to pay.
You know, I have to get with our risk manager on that and see if this will help with our medical pricing, our medical insurance pricing. I know this does help with our JPA for our workman's comp and things like that when we have a health and wellness plan in place for our employees.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from council?
Mr. Mayor, I do have one public speaker on this item,
Thank you.
the cameraman.
Good evening again, ladies and gentlemen of Oroville City Council. My comments have a little bit changed since before I thought about coming up here to speak. Now that I heard the presentation, if you will, of exactly what this is more clear than just authorize an amount not to exceed for staff. But I do have a question, which has been somewhat touched on. Staff. So in the wording, it says staff, and from my understanding, staff of Oroville is anybody that gets a paycheck from the city of Oroville. So I understand the chief put 50 because I guess that's the amount we have at the police department working, which is good. I like the idea to poll. I think we should poll our employees to see who can benefit from this, but also not just limited to the police department because like our chief says, maybe only, let's say 25 of the guys say, hey, I want to do gym membership. Well, maybe we can look at 25 of the members of staff and say, hey, do you guys want to do gym membership? Because, obesity and smoking, those are the two leading causes of preventable death in the United States when it comes to health. So, I mean, really, this is something we can benefit from. I mean, I don't like spending cost, no one likes to spend money. I mean, especially right now, times are tough in the economy, but that's why I think we should really poll this to see, if there's really that high demand for it. And like our chief said, if there's a lesser demand, maybe shorten that, that amount to meet that. But there is a point here that this is a physically demanding job. I mean, I'm not some muscly guy myself, but I do have to work out. I mean, if a guy takes off and I'm holding the camera, well, I want to be in somewhat of a shape to be able to catch that. I mean, I don't plan on jumping a bunch of fences anytime soon, but sometimes you may have to get that shot. And, being physically in shape, just because I'm filming and then, he's writing a ticket at any time, we may need to, be able to physically keep up with the demands of what is happening. And, you have a point when you say, if you will, that more heavy set officer, it's like, if I'm a bad guy and I see, the Marshmallow Man from, the Ghostbusters here, I'm like, I think that fence is going to be a benefit to me. I better get over it as fast as I can. But at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, regardless if you're 500 pounds or 50 pounds, you can't outrun that radio. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll add a quick comments that I came from the fire service and we did have a physical fitness program, but it also had an incentive. If you met your parameters for your height, weight, and body, then you would receive a certain amount of additional vacation per year. So there was this incentive on top of that. I think that this is a great idea for at least a trial basis and to get the ball rolling. I will say that the one facility, I've been a member of that for quite a while, and they have the capacity to handle a number of folks. If it was a smaller facility, I would say it's not big enough, but they have half of the old Walmart building, and there's an awful lot of machines in there. And that's the other point that you made. If you had a building and you had your own facility, you'd be buying those machines every year. And I think in the fire department, we bought a treadmill, if I recall, for about $7,000 or $8,000. And that just lasts for a certain period of time. And, you know, we didn't really have a funding for that kind of replacement. So I think our dollar is probably well spent in one of these facilities. I don't care which one, but, and I will say that they have a good recording system. You just show your cell phone and it identifies you when you walk in the door. So it would be a good digital record keeping of that process and the people there. And I think it's a great idea, at least for a trial basis for a year or so, and see how we get people in there. Because we are agreeably in that New Year's surge where the folks show up and the New Year's resolutions appear. So I think it's a great idea. Vice
Mr. Mayor, if I could
Sure.
just throw something just real quick, and you can continue your conversation. I'd like to see us also expand this to our fire service as well. One of the things that we've lost is we've lost part of our apparatus bay because of the lack of space, and the workout machines that they have are currently taking up the small apparatus bay. Now that may not seem like a big issue, but it becomes an issue when we are storing excess apparatus in the Z warehouse, which then we lose the Z warehouse. I mean, because we have an engine that can't be sitting out in the weather. So if this is something that works for Chief Tins, we'd like to we'd like to eliminate that workout area that's in there and reclaim that space for some of the apparatus in there.
Got it. Vice Mayor Smith.
Yeah. I got a free treadmill. It's called Table Mountain, Grand Avenue. Anyway, doesn't cost me a dime. Works great every other day. But just a question on HR issues. Potentially, would then if you had a requirement, would that then become part of their work hours? What would that then look like? I mean, I love the idea. Just to come back to Councilman Thompson's comments about, but at the same time, you know, what level of, you know, leverage do we have to make
that's
that happen?
that's the leverage that we would use, and we would be careful about who we do that with. I mean, there are certain job classifications where we can compel them to do this. The ones that we cannot, they need to do it on their own time and you know, take care of their needs in that manner. But you know, I would think that we would limit that to our police, firefighters, MLEs, and dispatchers to do that. And I would like, now whether it's at the beginning of their shift, it's at the middle of their shift, it's at the end of their shift, I just want to see them in there caring for themselves and taking care of those issues that they need to, and getting themselves in the best possible physical condition so we don't experience the loss of, you know, quite honestly, I lose the efficiency of an officer now. That's very significant considering our staffing levels. I mean, you know, and all of a sudden I'm shifting people, I'm moving shifts, I'm closing shifts. You know, once I get up to a more robust staff, that may not be as big an issue. But to answer your question in a short manner, yes, they will be going on duty, some classifications.
Yeah, and just to bolster what you said about workman's comp, you know, one claim we can spend far beyond the 17,000 plus that you're looking for. And I know just on a personal level of staying fit, all of a sudden the stairs, you know, as you mature, life becomes more difficult. Maturity is highly overrated, folks. And so, no, my body appreciates the discipline, you know, as we mature and move along. So I think it's definitely a benefit to our staff. So I'm certainly in favor of it. I would love to see it actually offered to the entire staff. My biggest concern to the comments earlier made was, and if we're paying this amount out, and then, you know, just like all of the other New Year's resolutions, they become a challenge to hold on to. So that's the piece that concerns me, that element. But other than that, I think this is great.
How will, Mr. Vice Mayor, how we'll address that is we will send out the email. We will see how many people are, you know, going to take advantage of this. I mean, we may be back here saying, hey, there's 70 people that want to do this. I mean, I hope that's the response that we get, but I unfortunately think that it's probably going to be something less than that. But we'll report back what we have, and we will size it appropriately.
Any other questions or comments? I've entertained a motion.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I want to just be really clear on this now. Is the council, whatever this motion is going to be, is it going to be strictly for public safety, or is it going to be for the entire organization?
I say entire.
I think it's all. Myself, I would go for all.
Thank you, sir.
After the email and seeing who's interested.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. With that being said, motion?
So I make a motion that we can authorize a purchase of gym memberships after a email survey is done by Chief Lagrone determining the interest level of the staff.
I second that.
Third.
Second, third. It's been motioned and seconded. Call for the vote, please.
Motion
you.
carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Thank you all. Appreciate the presentation.
Thank you, council.
Item number 13, developer request to waive park development impact fees for proposed 175-unit market rate multifamily development.
Hello and good evening again, Mayor Pittman and council members. As said, this is a request to consider waiving the park development impact fees for a newly proposed market rate multifamily housing development that's proposing to install recreational amenities and parkland on site. For some background, the development impact fees were adopted to ensure that new development will not burden existing services for our population with the cost of the facilities required to accommodate growth. Our current impact fees include law enforcement, fire suppression, traffic, storm drainage, sewer collection, general government, and park development. Development impact fees are one-time fees typically paid when a building permit is issued and imposed on a new development. The purpose of the park development impact fees is to generate revenue to fund park facilities needed to serve new development. The impact fee is based on maintaining the city's existing parkland standards. Facility standards for parks typically are expressed as a ratio of 3 acres per 1,000 residents, as residents are considered to be the primary users of the parks as opposed to residents and the working population. The city currently has approximately 20,000 residents and 27 acres of parkland, bringing that total of acreage to 1,000 residents to approximately 1.4 park acres. The development impact fee study did not account for the Feather River Recreation and Park District parklands and recreational amenities. That is approximately 220 acres of parkland and amenity ground within the city limits of Oroville as well. So with that ratio, that brings that current parkland to residential ratio to about 13 acres per 1,000 residents. So it's a substantial increase. Staff received a request from the project developer attached to within your staff report for council to consider waiving the park development impact fees for the reason that this proposed development will install parkland and recreational amenities to meet the needs of the residents of this new development. And some of those amenities include pickleball, basketball, frisbee, large playground, exercise trail around the perimeter of the site, large open areas for other sports activities, 7 picnic areas, community center with workout and yoga room, a large pool area, cornhole, and horseshoes. Substantial amenities. The developer's goal is to deliver an upscale, market-rate, multifamily housing development, and that will be fully fenced and secured. And but due to the increase of labor and materials, it's reducing the feasibility of this project. The developer is also not receiving any tax credits as many of the other developments within the city have. So that's why this developer is requesting a waiver of these park development impact fees to make this project feasible for our community. The park development impact fees for multifamily housing developments is at a cost of $3,095 per unit. And at 175 units, the developer is looking at $541,625 for park development impact fees alone. The remaining development impact fees would be $738,000, and that's not including all of the building permit
fees, plan review, sewer collection, and connection fees and other fees for outside agencies. Those fees come in at a total cost of $2,196,000. So with that, staff is recommending to approve the request from the developer to waive the park development impact fees for the reason that he is installing those amenities and park land improvements himself, or provide staff direction as necessary. And we also have the developer Tuck Tatro here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for the presentation. Any council questions? Councilperson Riggs.
Thank you. Upon initially reading it, I was hesitant as somebody who is a big advocate for recreation in our community and the accessibility of recreation in our community. However, after actually reading the full packet, not just the agenda, was really encouraged to see the components that will be offered within this residential space. And I think that it's also really important to reiterate that in our housing development scope, one of our areas that we really do need improvement in is market rate housing. And so I'm excited to see this type of development happen in our community. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Smith.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, I'm certainly excited to see someone interested in bringing market rate housing. This goes back to some of my own personal feelings about subsidized housing and creating a disparity and or a challenge for someone that wants to bring that to our community versus now competing with someone that's subsidized. That's a whole nother conversation. But I just want to share that I'm kind of reflecting on, I remember a couple of years ago, Ron Reed, who developed Paula Court project over there, he had a similar request. The previous council did ultimately deny that request for some of the fees to be waived. There was a variety of fees, I believe, that he had requested. And I'm kind of mixed on this. I mean, I'm definitely a private, enterprise guy. Obviously, my relationship with the Chamber of Commerce, and I want to see this project move forward. At the same time, I'm a little bit concerned about the messaging, in that, it's that old, the cascade effect. Then, and then even me personally, I've developed property, and, I had to pay my impact fees. I mean, there was no way around that. That's just how it works, because these pieces government has a responsibility to develop, whether it's the roads or parks or whatever. So I would be okay with this, I think, if there was a way that we could, as you were sharing that kind of list of quality of life pieces with pickleball courts, and somehow we could ensure that those elements would be available and those would be built out. I kind of wonder, at 500, so he's going to keep 541,000 or have that forgiven, and then I'm kind of wondering, can he build all of that for 541,000? But at the same time, thinking about market rate housing, you have a lot of on-site, whether it's gyms, we're talking about working out, all those kinds of things. It is really cool. I've lived in places myself where you have some of those amenities that are available. And it's just a nice element to have. So maybe you can speak to that as to what we could do to ensure, if we're going to waive this, then with all that I've said, how could we ensure that these pieces that he's talked about in the letter, they're going to happen?
Well, those amenities would be a part of that plan review process for the site plan. And so all of those currently as preliminary have been reviewed through our Development Review Committee or our DRC committee. And so the various departments have reviewed those very preliminary plans, but they have also been submitted to the building department for the initial review, and it does contain those amenities within that site plan. And so that is a part of that full submittal package for the building plan review, and that does get circulated through all the departments to ensure that every piece of that proposed development gets constructed. So before that project receives its final inspection and occupancy permit, we would have to ensure that all of those amenities are constructed. Otherwise, they would not receive the occupancy permit.
quick question I have, as these amenities, this nice long list here, who would own them? And
They
who would
would-
take care of them?
It would be on the private developer to own them and maintain them.
So our maintenance would not be required of those
It would not
facilities?
require city maintenance.
So that's the other part I'm looking at is the developer puts them in, maintains them,
Mhm.
and we would have a maintenance requirement. I think it's kind of a win-win for us because we'd want to have these facilities anyway. And did I hear we're going to look at a fenced facility, security facility?
Yes, it will be a fully fenced development, and they will have on-site security in the evening hours. Correct.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I like the idea. Okay. Councilperson Thompson.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is a great idea. I'm fully in favor of it. Part of the reason for that is I used to live out in Thermalito and got collected fees for a proposed future potential fire department that there's zero plans in the city to build one, but yet we're still collecting those fees. So actually having a developer coming in and meeting basically the heart of why we collect those fees and making it happen for probably pennies on the dollar of what the city could do is absolutely win-win for everybody.
Agreed.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Smith.
Yeah, I made a comparison to Ron Reed. I just wanted to clarify that he was promising nothing. And he ended up developing market rate housing. And there was supposed to be some programs provided in there. And there was, anyway, that's another conversation. But I just want to clarify the difference.
Understood.
So here we're getting
Yes.
those folks that are going to live there are having amenities provided to them as opposed to us paying for them, which I think is great because we don't have to maintain it. I just would want to ensure that in fact that those pieces are developed as part of the promise.
Right. And we've also shared this development with the hospital administration, and they are excited to share this with their oncoming staff.
Thank you. Any more questions up here? If not, I'll look for public comment. Do we have any public comment?
Mr. Mayor, I have 3 speakers. Our first speaker is Chuck Tattoo. Sorry.
Welcome, sir.
Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you for your consideration this evening. Just to touch on Vice Mayor's comments, the amenities I'm putting in will cost about $2.5 to $3.5 million. So it exceeds the park fees that I would be paying. And also another thing to look at on that site, I bought that site and also own where the affordable, the workforce is now going in and the senior apartments. I sold that to K2 out of Reading. And so the idea is I can get some good over here, but also give a need that is needed in Oroville, which is higher end housing. And so what I did is on this property by right, I could put about 650 apartments on it. I lowered that to 174. I want to do high end, almost resort style living to bring in the doctors, the nurses that are needed. There's rumors of some very high-end distribution hub coming into Oroville, which I hope happens, which will also need housing. The total project cost, so I wanted to speak to that, though, that I am spending a lot of money on amenities. Another thing to realize, all the downstairs units all have their own backyards. So I have another apartment on Skyline Apartments in Oroville that I own that has backyards. People love it. I'm here to answer questions. Everything on the list would be a condition of approval through planning, which I would be held to. So that would be, like she said, no, where's your pickleball? No C of O type of deal. And I've been developing in Chico for years. I have a very good reputation, I like to think, and I always do what I say I'm going to do. So I hope that carries over to Oroville. There's some other properties I'd like to develop here as well.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions?
Any questions of
Thank you.
gentlemen?
Can I come swim in the pool?
I'm sorry?
You don't have to have a friend that.
I wonder if I can come play pickleball.
Only in the winter.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Do we have some other public comments?
We have 3 more. Our next speaker is Chuck Reynolds.
I was joking, by the way.
Hi, good evening, council
Ron Reed was brought up. I was instrumental in that. It was a complete different situation. Mr. Reed was awarded grant monies and was attempting to keep them. He was given the fee money and wanted to keep it. So this is a complete different situation. It's not even close. So I just wanted to clear that up. So anyway, thank you. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Our next speaker is Brian Wong.
Hi, Mayor and City Council members. Actually, I just heard of this project today, and I'm highly supportive of it because as the city is, trying to do good work in the future, we have to ask, like, how are we investing in our future? So whatever we want to have in the city, we got to give a lot of incentives for those realities to happen. So I think working with developers in these regards is the perfect way to do it. And then also, what do we have to gain? So whenever we invest in something, we got to look at the cost, benefit analysis. So we might lose a little something right now, but if we can keep a lot of people in the community that has high disposable income, that comes back in sales taxes and many other forms. So I just want to make sure that that is figured into the equation. So that's my recommendation, is for you all to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Our next speaker is Carlos Valdez.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Carlos Valdez. I represent Local 46. It's a carpenters union. The question that I have, this project looks, very promising and everything, but we're forgetting about something that's very important for our community. The fact of that, this job will be paying area standard wages and benefits, which are a must for our community. So that means the people who's getting paid area standard wages and benefits, they get the chance to buy a house where they live. And also they get health care. And most of construction workers don't have health care coverage. And that is a very sad situation, especially for us, because if they don't have health care coverage, who's going to be taking care of it? It's going to be social services. And so on the way to prevent that, it is imperative that the area standards and wages are paid and the benefits with it. Also, the fact that if our young labor force, they need to have a partnership program that's going to teach them to work and to do everything the right way. So that way they're going to be investing on their own future, and they're going to be better members of the community, since they're going to be able to get a good education and to be able to buy a house where they live in. And, I would like to have a talk with each and every one of you. Please, like I say, my question is to the developer, will this project will be paying area standards and benefits? Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, that is the last of the public speakers.
Okay. I will mention something just as a point of information. I know there's some early discussions with the high school district superintendent upon a potential apprenticeship program for local in the school system. I don't know where it's at. I know there's discussions are happening, and we certainly would hope that would produce an apprenticeship program for high school and trade schools. It'd be wonderful to have. Yes, sir. Good, good. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that information. All right, that's the end of public comment. Do we have any more council questions? I'd entertain a motion then.
I recommend a motion to approve the request to waive the park development impact fees.
I'll second.
I'll third and fourth it.
All right, we ready for a vote?
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Thank you. Item number 14, the award of a ABC Nix Pioneer Towing, the abandoned vehicle abatement towing service contract. Mr. Belser, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Pittman and council. What you have for consideration tonight is the awarding ABC Nix Towing with the abandoned vehicle abatement towing services. June 21st, 2022, you authorized the request for proposal regarding this item. This item was, or the RFP was posted on the city website, and my team hand-delivered packets to every eligible tow company. After we received 2 reviews, or 2 bids, and this was reviewed by staff, after careful review, we determined that the low bidder was ABC Nix. Pioneer Towing, according to staff, recommends that ABC Nix Pioneer be awarded the AV8 contract. They're the current contract holders, they're reliable, and their contract bid was cost-effective. Fiscal impact, expenditures are paid out of the code enforcement department budget, and the revenue reimbursements are recorded into that same account. So my recommendation tonight is to award ABC Nix Pioneer Towing with abandoned vehicle abatement towing service contract.
Short question, how many vehicles a month or year do we?
So
Just the
I
ballpark.
actually just put that number together, and we're right around, we're over 325 right now. That's just abandoned vehicle. That's not vehicles that are taken off the street or being parked for over 72 hours, expired over 6 months.
And the funding for that, does that come out of the abatement program through the county or state, or how's that
It's
work?
it comes, you pay $1 on your registration fees to vehicles, that gets put in a pot. Based on percentage goes to each city or county.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of Mr. Belser? Do we have any public comment on this?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any public speakers on item 14.
Without any questions, I'd entertain a motion.
So move.
I second that.
Moved and seconded. Let's call for the vote.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Belser. Appreciate that. Item number 15, council appointment to committees, commissions, and boards. The mayor may appoint council members to various committees, commissions, boards, and leave assignments the status quo. Once the mayor has made the assignments, the council will vote to confirm the assignments. I've been on this council, I finished 3 terms, and I'm on my 4th term, and this is an annual exercise that we all go through to share the responsibility and the workload that we have on this city council and the different committees and boards. The one thing that I've noticed in the past is I've made a suggestion about having 2 new committees. One is a small ad hoc committee for personnel, so that the council deals with personnel and participates in that process and then informs the entire council. But the other one is a quality of life committee. And there, I think it's important because very few people have the time to come to council and tell their story in 3 minutes and not get their story fully told, whereas a standing committee, and I'll ask the city attorney to describe the difference between the two, but my intention is to have the public have a way to meet with 3 council members and hear their entire discussion and how their concerns are, and it would be kind of a wide open agenda so that we can hear the public come and tell us, and then that committee would put together a good policy and bring that policy to the full council to enact whatever policy may be. And it's not restricted to anything, it's kind of wide open. So, city attorney, would you explain the difference between the standing committee and the ad hoc committee process?
Sure, certainly. So standing committee is typically issues that are ongoing. And I'll use just as an example, like finance committee or executive committee, that would deal with items on a routine and regular basis, which is ongoing year over year over year. Those committee assignments, the committee itself is subject to the Brown Act. The committee is required to meet when it has a quorum when it has a duly noticed meeting, I'm sorry, not a quorum, when it has a duly noticed meeting and an agenda item posted at a particular time and place, that meeting would be open to the public. Any member of the public would be able to participate and attend and watch the meeting, much like watching a council meeting. An ad hoc committee is typically for either a limited scope or a limited duration, or usually both, limited scope and limited duration. It's got a finite area of authority, a limited purpose necessarily, and usually it's for a period of time. The general rule of thumb is less than 1 year. Those committees are not subject to the Brown Act. Now, I'll say that with a little bit of caution. The committee itself is not subject to the Brown Act, but the subject matter, I'll just use as an example, Mr. Mayor, you mentioned the Quality of Life Committee. If, for example, that committee were to be formed and someone were to come to the Quality of Life Committee with an issue that may need to be discussed at the council, the committee itself is not subject to the Brown Act, but that would not mean that the committee members may then talk to every other member of the council about that item that may come before the full body of the council. Anything that may come before the full body of the council still would have to comply with the Brown Act. Does that make sense?
Sure.
But that's really, in a nutshell, the difference. Any committee that is a regular standing committee, ongoing year over year over year, is a standing committee subject to the Brown Act. Anything that is an ad hoc committee with a limited purpose, limited scope, limited time frame would not be. They're required to be established in the same manner. The committees that we have established are in existence, and any new ones would need to be approved by the council. And the same with the elimination of committees. The council may eliminate committees if there hasn't been a desire to do that, but they certainly can. But they don't just go away because no one is nominated to it. They still remain in existence, even though technically they may not have someone assigned to it. Anyway, that in a nutshell, that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions or go into further detail as you wish.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Like I said, at the first meeting, I put out a round of what I thought were fits for council members, and then I received many comments from council members about what their interests were and what they couldn't make. Some of them have different time schedules and whatnot, so I appreciate that, and I appreciate all the input I got. My also intention is this is an annual event, so down the line next year, I would look forward to folks advising me what maybe committee they have interest in for the next go-round, because we're supposed to do this every year. So this is the first round, and I think the best way to learn about the city is to be on those subcommittees and work with staff and learn all the issues that are throughout the city, that are the minutia of detail that we can't explain here in this council chamber. So anyone have any questions?
We do community first.
Oh, public comment?
Mr. Mayor, I have one public speaker, Bill Spear.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, yeah, I have a couple issues. Number one is the Oroville Downtown Business Association. Person you recommended for the committee was Chrissy, but our elected representative for the downtown area was Mr. Weber. I think it's kind of disenfranchising the voters who voted for Mr. Weber for the downtown. You put Tracy Johnstone, Councilwoman Johnstone, as the airport as she should be. It's in her district. And since we are districting, I think that it's important that we stick to, if something's in a person's district, to put it in their district. Also, the Quality of Life Standing Committee, we've already been doing a couple meetings. Mr. Weber campaign promised it, and we've already been happening and doing it. Thank you for coming and participating and suggesting that we make it into a committee, but I think we're going really well just the way it is. I would not for adding any more new committees. I would try to remove any committees, make it less so everybody's not spread out so thin, would be my recommendation. Look at what we're doing and see, is it really necessary? Also, I have a issue with the Citizens Oversight Committee. And you have Councilwoman Goodson on that. For having oversight, I came in on our last meeting as a citizen. I'm a citizen doing some oversight on something that happened in the election that I thought was improper, and it was. And a citizen should be able to come here and say, hey, this is improper. And this here is a committee for doing that. The citizens are supposed to come here and say, hey, this is not proper, and then they get their voice heard or make the recommendation. So that's what I did. I came here and I said, this wasn't proper, and it wasn't, and I just asked for an apology. Instead, what I got was no apology, and I got threatened and cussed out right here in this chamber in front of witnesses here. I believe there's people in this room that seen it go on. And I don't see how you could put somebody that would do that to a citizen on the Citizens Oversight Committee. Also, for the Confidential Human Resource Committee, if somebody's acting like that and can't even just give a simple apology and you're going to put them on human resources, I think it's highly improper, way out of line, and I'm against it. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, that is the only public speaker.
Thank you. I can appreciate anyone's observation and concerns, but I also mention that in this process, as the mayor is to make selections, it's kind of a job responsibility. And the other thing I'll just say is first come, first serve. I mean, that was, as everyone contacted me, I looked to fill those positions and locations because I figure if they're interested in that, they're worthy of working. And you got to remember, this is all volunteer work. There's a tremendous amount of work to be done here. I received a lot of input. I appreciate your input. I think that I'm going to let it stand, and next year we'll change things. I mean, that's the prerogative that this council has, so we'll look at it every year. Yes, sir. Councilman Thompson.
Thank you. Typically I'm not been around as long as you, but I've been here for 6 years now. Mm-hmm. And typically my experience in the past is there is input given from council members before committees are assigned. And I did reach out to you November 21st. You said get back to me, and you still haven't gotten back to me.
That's true.
So I have not given any opportunity to give my input or request or desire. Mm-hmm. There's some committees on here that I'm assigned to that just don't work in my schedule, and I'm not in favor of the 2 new committees either. I do think it's interesting that you had the idea to add these committees, yet you didn't assign yourself to either of them. I think it's important for people who have issues with the city that it's heard during our normal city council meetings. So those are my 2 cents. So yeah, I'm not in favor of it currently.
Okay. Vice Mayor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I do appreciate some of the changes that I see here versus what was. That being said, I want to echo some of my observations with the 2 new committees. I feel that, and I understand, and I appreciate your motive and where you're trying to drive this to, but it does come with some reservation. First of all, as you know, we just now had district elections, and as a part of that process, the individuals that were elected to those districts are to address specific concerns that those constituents might have in their representative districts. I feel that it would be of value to allow that new kind of process or policy to have some time to kind of work itself out, because by creating this quality of life standing committee, I'm concerned that it might circumvent the whole purpose of generating or creating districts in the first place. So that's just a kind of a 30,000-foot observation initially regarding the quality of life committees. And in addition, I think it would be very important that we would hammer out policy specifics, which I don't see. I just see the title and some verbal ideas as to what that might look like. But I really think it would also be a value that we have very clear and debated and worked out policies regarding a committee of that nature. That I think it would be of great value so that we can have further discussion back and forth and debate regarding that. And then I also have concerns with the Confidential Human Resource Committee, given some of the, even going to the, some of the complaints that have occurred in the past, grand jury reports that we've seen regarding concerns about actions of various council members over time, not just in the last, but over time, over a great period of time, that I'm just kind of concerned about what that exactly looks like. And it would almost seem like kind of a license to pry in a little bit, and then to the exclusion of other council members in addressing various concerns. So again, I lack a lot of clarity with that, and then I have concerns about what exactly that looks like. And as far as some of these other appointments, I feel like we need to have, and going back to Councilman Thompson's point about not really having an opportunity. I think that at this point, I think we need to have further, you need to hear more from us. We need to have further discussion. As presented, I'm not ready to move forward with this, to give my stamp of approval. I know that you ultimately make those selections, and that's your prerogative and as mayor. And I respect that process. However, it does, just like the Senate, it does require all of us to give our approval, or at least a 4-3 approval. And I'm just letting you know, as this stands, I'm not ready to say yes to this. I think we need to have, and especially with the comments that I just heard from Councilman Thompson, I think it would be good if we just put a pause on this. At least that's how I feel at this moment, anyway. And I'm sure others may have some concerns as well.
Let me address a couple things that you mentioned. Go ahead, Councilman Weber, you're on the tee.
Yeah. Thank you. So I too am in opposition to forming these two committees. One, I would like to piggyback off of Vice Mayor Smith's comments about that we just adopted district maps. I think we should give an opportunity for us to actually see how that works out. I think this is, again, a little preemptive, that like we haven't even seen what we're going to do. We all have a responsibility as district representatives, and I would also like to note that every single one of the things that this would have a direct connection to already have avenues to record complaints. There's not one entity in any of those the councils that does not have an ability for a citizen to come and right here to this dais and make their complaints known here, or to go to code enforcement or the fire department or any of them. It already exists. So this looks like more bureaucracy to me that would probably be unnecessary, especially with Vice Mayor Smith's comments. And I would like to also talk about that citizen-led initiative that we have been. I did run on that, and we've already had 2 meetings. We're having amazing results. And it's loosely named as such. I don't want to, but it's basically the Community Action and Safety Coalition in partnership with the Downtown Neighborhood Watch with Terry Tata, and we have formed a partnership and an alliance to work for 2 goals: reactionary and proactive. So our reactionary goals, of course, would be police, code enforcement, fire department. We actually have a veterans assistant liaison that we're working with as well to work with some of the, so we have a reactionary goal and then we have a proactive goal. And the reactionary goal, of course, would be homelessness and crime issues and all those things that we all have in all of our different respective districts. Proactive initiatives that we're working on as well as a youth initiative. You were there, and thank you, by the way, for being there, Mayor Pittman. But we're having talks with the high school football team coach over at Las Plumas because he really wants to raise up these young men and women to have a citizen stakeholder ownership in our community. And that we're hoping to expand that, not just the sports teams, but also to other students at not only Las Plumas, but Oroville as well. So, and we're also working with the Axiom for some of our more at-risk youth to involve them in a youth initiative. So all these things are in the beginning phases, but the point I'm trying to make is that I'm doing all this already in District F. And I'm hoping that the rest of the representatives for the districts would adopt something like this. Thank you, Vice Mayor Smith, for being involved, and also Councilwoman Johnstone for coming as well. And I think that this is a really good thing, but I think citizen-led initiatives make a lot more sense than adding more bureaucracy and slow this process down. I think we could get a lot of fast stuff done, and that's my take on it. And I don't know if I said, but I'm in opposition to forming those two committees as well.
Okay. I'll try to answer a couple Vice Mayor Smith's comments, which the Quality of Life Committee was 3 members, and 3 members I chose looking at 3 districts, but also give them the parameters to do what they think is best for that committee. I didn't want to give that kind of direction. That's not what I was intending. I just wanted to give the public a forum to come here and not be restricted to the 3-minute rule and not be restricted to the agenda items, which we can't. You know, someone walks in the door and they want to talk about something, we have to look at them and say, thank you very much. It's not on the agenda. We can't respond to you. Whereas the committee would have that opportunity to do so. And then the same thing with the HR ad hoc. We as councilmen rarely get an opportunity to participate in the HR development of our staff and talk about recruiting and talk about all the things that we need to fill the positions. We're in a dire need right now to get positions filled, and the intent of that ad hoc committee was to help HR and then be a conduit to the council for issues that are going on there. And the other alternative to that, which I've seen in the past, is every one of us, the 7 people, go in and see HR, and then it burns up a lot of time. I was trying to focus that on a delegation of representatives from this body. So, and again, the Quality of Life Committee was just a subcommittee just to give the opportunity to talk about the topic. Also, an ability for your citizen initiative to come and be properly recorded to council. Whereas, you know, you could maybe have one Quality of Life meeting here, and all those things that happen at that committee or that committee thing would be recorded and actually be part of the full record. That was the intent. I didn't really, you realize you guys had even called it your Quality of Life Committee. I was before that, so I certainly applaud that initiative, and I think it's a great idea. Any other comments? I think what we'll do is we'll table this for the next meeting, and I'll bring it back. That's all right with everybody? Okay, table it for next meeting. Next item on the agenda is public hearings. We have a hearing, it wasn't timed, was it? No. Okay, item number 17, the first reading of the ordinance of 1871 adopting the 2022 California Building Standards Code and Ordinance, 1872 amending Chapter 15 of the City of Oroville Municipal Code, and a resolution of the Oroville City Council adopting the legislative findings supporting amendments and changes to the California State Building Code Standards 2022. You know, I go all the way back to the 97 code, and I still like the 97 code. Can we go back to that?
I wish we could. It was much easier.
Yes, it
Fewer
was.
volumes, less words.
It was a book like that. That was it.
Yeah,
No
I
throwing
wish.
binders.
No, every year it gets more and more.
Could you introduce yourself to the board?
Good evening, Council, Mayor and City Council. My name is Allison Schmidt. I'm the new building official here for the City of Oroville. Before you this evening, as Mayor stated, is 3 items necessary for the City of Oroville's adoption of the 2022 California Building Standards Code. And I do want to make a comment in the staff report. There was an error in the year. It says the 2019 code in the staff report, really is the 2022 code that's being adopted. First up is Ordinance 1871, which adopts the 2022 edition of the Building Standards Code, along with selected appendices. Second is Ordinance 1872. This ordinance amends Chapter 15 of the Oroville Municipal Code by removing historical amendments to the model code that the city has made and revising the scope, title, and purpose of each individual code to match the model codes. The third is Resolution 9121, which adopts legislative findings supporting the adoption of the appendices to the codes. Brief history. The California Building Standards Commission publishes the California Building Standards Code every 3 years. The 2019 codes expired on January 1st of this year. Automatically, the 2022 codes go into effect. Each jurisdiction is required to adopt the current codes, so that's what we're doing here. And we also have the opportunity to make amendments and modifications to those codes following specific guidelines from the Building Standards Commission. Historically, the city has made numerous amendments to the codes as part of the local adoption process. I went through our current municipal code, and there are pages and pages and pages of amendments to the codes. This year, I reviewed all of those and found that the majority of those are very old. They're from the early 2000s that are left in the municipal code. And those modifications that we were historically making have actually become changes in the model codes, so we don't need those modifications anymore. Some of the amendments that we made historically are things that I think are better served as policies and procedures for the department. So I scaled back the amendments to the code to basically adopting some of the appendices that would help our residents with future construction. Also included in your staff report are 2 publications from the Building Standards Commission. The first is titled, "It's Your Building Department." The Building Standards Commission publishes this to educate our legislative bodies and our public about why building departments are important and why it's important to maintain proper staffing and funding for our building departments. The second publication is the 2022 California Title 24 code changes. This is a brief synopsis of some major code amendments, code changes in this 2022 cycle. It's definitely not all encompassing, but it just gives you a brief overview of what those changes are. So at this time, I'd like to open for any questions from council.
Councilman Riggs.
Thank you. I just wanted to say welcome, and I'm so happy to have your position filled.
Thank you.
In-house. Welcome, and thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? What happens if we don't adopt this code, if we keep the old code?
We cannot keep the old code. It automatically went into effect the 1st of January. By us adopting it, we can make the amendments and modifications to the code, which allows me to adopt some of the appendices to the code. Those are not automatic.
I know there was one exception in the code that we had, the issue of the check valves for our sanitary sewer system. We have that, and it was amended in the codes in the past, but because we have the downtown area, we have an infiltration issue, and I didn't go through it to read it, but just double check to make sure that's in there, because most of the commercial facilities, that because of the groundwater penetration, we required clapper valves on the sewer lines.
Okay.
And he's over there looking like.
No, I'm getting ready to actually hit the button here and speak, yeah.
I didn't mean to open that door, but there it is.
We'll look into that and make sure that we have that addressed. And that's something that more than likely does not need to be an amendment to the model codes. We don't need to amend the plumbing code. That just becomes a local ordinance.
It was just a geographic issue that we had for amendment to the code.
Yeah,
so.
the plumbing code does require, let me see if I get this rule correct. Any property that has an opening that is lower than the next uphill manhole does require that, as you put it, clapper valve, or the backflow prevention device, as the industry calls it. Yeah, which we had years and years of litigation in a Supreme Court case on in our favor.
Yeah, state Supreme Court, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Of history.
I've heard, yes.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions from council? Oh, Vice Mayor Smith, excuse me, I wasn't looking.
Likewise, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, this conversation, I'm sure, given the one earlier about giving an exception for the market rate apartments, which goes to that we can think outside the box. And full disclosure, I was a licensed general contractor for some years. And sometimes it was a bit challenging working with the building department, as you can well imagine. Coming from the Bay Area, I came up here actually to do some development originally back in the 2000s. And when I got to Butte County, and I was working with that department, I thought, oh my goodness, I've come to a whole new world, and it was wonderful. They're so helpful. If I had questions or difficulties, they'd go into the back room and they'd work with, staff would work with me, and it was just a fresh breath of air. And I just loved Butte County. It was like amazing. So just with that, I certainly, having this conversation, it's really important that Oroville, that we certainly, portray that, certainly we want quality built structures. That's partly health and safety, right? That's the public depends on us to ensure that our developers and builders are doing quality work. At the same time, those individuals have to get work done. And so I guess I want to express, appreciate this, appreciate the codes. In fact, you typically don't need to worry about a building being built to code until there's a big storm or the tornado comes.
Yeah.
And that's why the nail pattern is the way it is, right? Or the size of the beam or whatever. It's when the building is challenged. And then, of course, the proverbial what happened, or look what happened in Florida with buildings falling down and all of those types of things. So certainly appreciate the role that you have. At the same time, I certainly want the message going out to developers and those that are looking to Oroville, bringing that market rate and better housing or other projects, that we have a building department that's friendly, easy to work with, and to get projects across the finish line in a timely fashion.
Absolutely,
So,
thank you. Yeah, I'm new here. A lot of people don't know that I'm new here. I tell everybody, call, text, email me anytime. Come into the building department and bring you back to my office. We'll sit and talk. Let's figure things out and work through it.
All right, hear that, developers? Back to the office. Allison's office is open for business.
It is,
Awesome.
absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Seeing no more council questions, do we have any public comments for this item?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, again, it would be appropriate, just for the record, to be clear, it'd be appropriate to formally open the public, the public hearing.
That's right.
And then
With the
once there are
presentation.
no more comments, then you can close the public hearing. But yeah,
Thank you.
as a de facto parliamentarian,
I appreciate that. As we've had the presentation, I'll open the public hearing for this item number 17 at, whatever time it is. 10 minutes after 7, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we do not have any public speakers on this item.
All right. Well, I guess we'll have to close the public hearing, so noted, at 2 minutes later. All right. Does the council wish to make a recommendation?
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
I move that we introduce by title only and waive the first reading of the ordinance number 1871 and 1872, amending, and so on and so forth.
Call the vote.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Thank you.
Allison, thank you very much. Nice presentation.
And welcome.
And welcome, yes. Next item is public communication hearing of non-agenda items. This is on the tail end of it, so anyone from the public who wishes to speak that didn't get an opportunity at the beginning can now speak if they wish. Do we have any cards?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any public speakers for this section.
Thank you all for being here. Let's go into reports, discussions, and correspondence. Administration reports. Who wants to go first? How about Ruth? You tell you did such a nice job with finance and.
I told our presenters, the NHA advisors, they did a nice job, and he said, "Oh, I sped through it and I missed a couple points. If it's okay, I'll give you a couple points." He said we are in really good shape overall because we're 88% funded in our pension. He said most cities are 70%. So he wanted to let you know that we're in really good
Thank
shape as far as that goes. And he also wanted to make, those are the ones that didn't get the POB. Well, I guess that's the only point he wanted to let you know, that we were 88% funded. And the point I wanted to make is that really hope that our PARS account, the $3.5 million that we have to address pensions, my hope when we did the pension obligation bond was that we use the $3.5 million to pay off future unfunded liabilities, and then our very first one's 11 million. So it's like, wow, that plan didn't go very well, but hopefully
Yeah.
they do a better job investing. But I think if we put some additional payments in our budgets coming up and just keep at it, I think we'll stay ahead of the curve, because I think 88% is pretty darn good compared to the 70% of most cities. And I also wanted to touch on the cyber security again, because I go to these conferences and it's the first thing that they're talking about. And they say things like, well, you need to do two-factor authentication, you need to do this monitoring, you need to, and all the points they hit on, Tyson's already talked to me about them, and I feel really good. I feel that he is on it. I feel like he's on top of all these things. I'm not coming back from the conference telling Tyson, hey, we need to do this, we need to do that. He's on it, and it's really scary when they tell you all the stories about cities losing $400,000 like that, and they're just getting a lot better. But I didn't want you to think that that our city is unprotected, but most cities in general are a pretty good target because they don't do a lot of the things that we're doing. So I just want to let you know that I have a lot of confidence in our IT staff, and they do a great job, and we'll continue to think before you click.
I would agree, because he fixed my laptop. It hasn't been working for about a week now, so thank you very much. Dawn?
Yes, our Public Works crew spent much of Saturday filling as many of the large potholes as they could. With the heavy rains, they have blown out a lot of the potholes. I know last week they spent 3 days in a row filling some of them, just because we had an excessive amount of water. Atmospheric rivers, as the meteorologist called it. And so the Public Works crew has been hard at work trying to keep our roadways passable. So I give them kudos. They've done a great job. They've also had sandbags available to those in need, and they've also been pumping a lot of the impacted drain inlets that have seen too much of an inflow of water to try to keep our drainage system flowing freely. So far we've fared very well through this last couple of storms.
You know, as been around a while, I want to say to Public Works crews, they did an excellent job cleaning the drains out, because the typical areas that I used to drive around and know we'd have a flood, we did not. The drains worked. I think probably the work that was done with cleaning out all the drain inlets with the machines prior to was a great move to be taken, because all the places I used to get knee-deep in water didn't happen this year. So kudos to Public Works staff and drains. That was a big deal. Mr. Belser?
Good evening. This is day 364 for me as a director of code enforcement, and I wanted to share some numbers with you guys. I wanted to bring my team here tonight, but I looked at the agenda, the timing wasn't right. We'd be here till 9 o'clock, so. But I do plan in the future to introduce my team to you guys, and they're an amazing team. But it took a little while to get the office and computer set up, get a team hired. But in that, the last 364 days, we opened 1,529 cases, closing 1,420 of those with compliance. That is a 92.87% compliance rate. And I really wanted to, one of my biggest goals with my team and to make sure they understood was just follow through. When people call us and complain, that we follow through and we keep our word, and we improve the city like we promised to do in our mission statement. Of those 1,529 cases, actually 373 were abandoned vehicle abatement cases, 239 building code violations, 18 graffiti cases, and I just want to clarify on graffiti that these are 18 individuals that wouldn't comply, so we had to take other measures to get rid of graphic stuff that was on fences that was in public view, stuff we don't want our citizens and definitely our children not seeing. This does not include the hundreds of graffiti cases that was abated by City Works. Those guys are amazing. Not only are they out dealing with illegal encampments and other issues in the city, that they're out abating graffiti. 4 multifamily cases, 527 public nuisance, 11 substandard housing cases. And one of the biggest points is we issued 164 stop work notices, and these were contractors that were doing construction without a permit. And we used to average about 10 a year. So having a team out there, having vehicles, the support of the council, really the support of everybody has, I mean, these guys are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and very proud of them. And again, in the future, I'll bring them here to introduce you to them. I have some other numbers and some other stuff that I saved. And so we just want to say, as a team and myself, thank you for your support. And also thank you to Allison. It is amazing to have a building official. That is absolutely imperative for code enforcement, to have a building official on staff. Not always just going to a building inspector, but you know, it's important. She's been amazing. It's no joke. You can go to her office anytime. You know, any questions, she'll be there and answer it for you. So it was a great hire for our city. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Belser. Appreciate that. I was thinking when you read off the numbers about 1,500 in compliance, remember when we were only staffed with one in code enforcement, we had between 750 to 800 open complaints that was only worked on by a staff of one, and that's, you know, it's impossible to do. So thank you very much. Mr. Huber? Nothing? Mr. LaGrone?
Mr. Mayor, I have nothing to report, but I would like to request a change in the February 21 council meeting. If it's the council's will, I would like to have that meeting at the police department in the Emergency Operations Center. I'd like to open up the department so the community can see how we invested their dollars, let them tour that, and then if we could conduct the council meeting there. I have several officers I'd like to introduce to the council, several MLEs, and also I have several events that have occurred that are notable and the officers should be recognized for, and I'd like to do that all at the same time if that's the will of the council.
Sounds great to me. What's consensus, huh?
I'd appreciate it moved to March.
Okay, if you would, if fine with the council, we can do it in the first meeting in March.
Yeah, it's fine with me. I got no problem with that. Yeah.
We have donuts.
Yeah, donuts.
Yes,
told
we will
that
provide something.
The cops, they're not
Healthy
referred to
donuts.
as, they're not referred to as that. They're called circular sustainers.
Yes. Yes, please, March 7th.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Chief Tens?
Yeah, good evening. Just two quick topics, really quick, for an update on the fire department. Butte County CAL FIRE, of course, in cooperation with the City of Oroville, Paradise Gridley Biggs, is pleased to announce the launch of a new website for wildland fire preparedness. And excuse me, with my head down, I had to take notes. This is a new website. But it is bereadybutte.com, and residents can find how to on creating defensible space for homes, hardening homes, keeping homes fire safe, preparing go bags, other vital information, where to get fire updates with growing incidents, evacuation plans for communities, how to plan evacuation routes, where your house falls within the evacuation plans on the evacuation map. And really, it's a one-stop shop for emergency-related information for all Butte County residents. I think it'd be beneficial to also add that to the city website as well, maybe a link to that as well. And then last update is the fire department's monthly report. I'm still working on that. I know that that's been requested with the transition, working with the new emergency command center with CAL FIRE in Sacramento and trying to pull some of these stats that have been requested from council to get that in there. It's new, it hasn't been done, but we are working on that. Hopefully I can get that done as soon as possible. That's it.
Could you give us that website again and spell it so that anybody listening, I heard it, but I don't know what it was.
bereadybutte.com, bereadybutte.com, C-O-M.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Tens. Amy,
Yes.
what do you have for us?
I have two updates for you. If you remember, probably about 8-9 months ago, we applied for a 2022 CDBG application for neighborhood cleanup. We still haven't heard from the state regarding the application, but I did hear last week that they're hoping to do awards this month, by the end of the month. So I'll let you know on that when I hear. And then I did submit finally the 2022 PI only application that we had approval for the updates to the convention center for $1.4 million of program income that is current and future receipts. That took a while to submit because we had to do all the environmental work before we could submit the application, and that was complete. I already got a notice of conditional contract today. There are about 4 items that I need to clear up for them, so hopefully we'll be receiving an award on that as well.
Very good. Any other staff comments? Bring forward information? Next item is future agenda items from the council. Any item that Councilman Thompson?
Yeah, in light of the topic earlier as far as mental and emotional support, I think it's important for us as city council to take care of our staff, even the environment in which they work. Most people haven't been in these halls, but our carpet back here is hideous. It's really depressing. The bathrooms that they use are absolutely tiny, totally not under code, which is funny that we go and inspect people's bathrooms, and yet I can stand and hit my elbows with the stalls like this because they're so small. It's been put on the back burner for a long time. We have the money. I think it's important that we push it to the front burner and get our city hall inside at least so it's just not depressing and dirty.
You beat me to it. Those are already on my budget list for this next fiscal year. I was taking care of roofs this fiscal year, interiors next year.
Okay, and thank you. It's important to, I'm sure, all of us. Another item, which is partly safety, but partly to represent the pride of Oroville, is we have this amazing eagle that's got amazingly sharp talons on it that just easily could be toppled over by somebody. I think it's important that we respect what's been given to us and put it in the room. With that, though, the stand that it's on is, I don't know who built it, but no disrespect, I'm a cabinet maker, it's also hideous. So I would like to get a bid as well from a cabinet guy, maybe who did our cabinets here, to get also another proper stand for it to sit inside that room so it can be protected but properly
Certainly.
displayed. I think another item that could be displayed below it, we were given the honor of having a Harlan Bible, I believe is what it was given to us, which I don't know if any other city has one. It's usually given to courts, so that could easily be presented below it. But just some in-house things that could be done to improve and continue to benefit our citizens and staff.
If I could just comment on one thing, just regarding the restroom facilities. You did say they're not up to code. Technically not true.
Grandfathered.
They are up to code. They may not be fully ADA compliant, which is different. We do have some ADA compliant restrooms over here. The ones over on this side are not. However, your point is well taken. I just didn't want someone to think, oh, great, the city's enforcing the codes, but they're not following the codes. We are following the codes. They are
grandfathered in, but you couldn't build that bathroom today.
They are. I believe the term is existing.
Pre-existing.
Historic.
Yeah. Maybe. Pre-existing.
Unconforming.
Existing non-conforming. Yeah.
I think one of the stalls has a trash bag over it saying.
Yeah.
It's actually
I'm
working
not saying
now.
it doesn't have issues. Don't get me wrong.
The one is working. It hasn't worked for 12 years. It's working lately, so we're good.
I'm not saying there are not issues. I'm just suggesting.
I understand. It's grandfathered in code, but it definitely is not 2023 compliant.
Gotcha.
To modern standards.
Vice Mayor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This past weekend, we had a time of honoring docents at the golf course restaurant, and that was just a lovely event. And I just want to say that our mayor made some just very, very appropriate comments, I think, that really blessed our docents. I just wanted to publicly thank you for that. It was a very moving, passionate presentation that you gave. And I think that Ms. Nevers was a part of that, putting that together, and then Heather, our new curator. I'm going someplace with this. I think after the March Museum Week that we have, it would be great for Heather to perhaps have that opportunity to bring a full presentation with museums, kind of what's going on. I know they're doing a lot of work. I was over at the temple a week ago, and I know that they were busy, doing just a lot of in-house housekeeping and bringing things up to speed. It'd just be wonderful to get a full report, and you may already have that, preparing that into the future, but that would be wonderful to hear, from that department.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're going through and cleaning all the museums currently during their winter closure. And so with Miss McCafferty's background and training in museums and collections, she's teaching all of our docents how to properly care for our collections. And so that's been a fun process for all of them. As far as the Docent Association luncheon, it was very well put together luncheon. Miss McCafferty put that together as well. There was a nice speaker that talked about the 2 Chinatowns and the history of our downtown Oroville. And so, yes, I will have her bring back a presentation following the museum. She's been doing an excellent job with recruitment, including new events to our museums like the Halloween trick or treat for all the neighborhood kids. And so she's done a fantastic job. And I did not say it, but Allison Schmidt's also doing a fantastic job. She's only been here a few months and she's already implemented many new programs. And she's just really resonating well with the contractors and staff. So kudos to her as well. Sorry, I didn't make you turn red.
The presenter was Larry, and I can't remember his last name, from Butte County Historical Association or
Yes.
Society.
And it's bouncing around. It's
Yeah, but what an amazing, just information about the Chinese history in our area and all that. Too bad it wasn't live streamed. People have an opportunity, because there's just such a wealth of, and very fascinating how we had the second largest Chinese population in the state.
Yes.
That's just one piece of many, many very fascinating pieces as to the deep history of Oroville. So I personally appreciated that. Just a couple other things real quick, back to maintenance. And I brought this up a couple of years ago, just before we got into COVID and everything kind of spun to a screeching halt. But our roundabouts, for an example, there's a lot of damaged railing. And I know that we talked about, well, when we get the Table Mountain project completed, we'll look at that. But as I just drive around town, I see a lot of deferred maintenance. And again, I had mentioned this as perhaps a policy that we enact, where our staff has so much time to address deferred maintenance or damaged city property. I look at that twisted railing, and to me it's approaching, I probably shouldn't say this, but I just have concerns. I'll say it another way. I have concerns about the status of that particular public infrastructure, and I think that when we have damaged infrastructure, that we should have a certain amount of time that gets addressed, either removed or replaced in a timely fashion. So I'd like to put that on the agenda to look at that and to have staff look at that. And I know there's some additional folks that are going to be coming alongside into the near future to help us with some of these processes. So I'm looking forward to that. And then,
Yeah.
okay,
Good idea.
great, thank you. And then one other item, real quick, and it goes back to the striping machine. That in addition to, I'd like the staff to look at purchasing additional barriers, street closure barriers, and so that we have that in repertoire. And I know that when we have various organizations do like parades. Full disclosure, I happen to be involved in the parades from time to time, but I think we could utilize some upgraded or additional barriers, and if there's any police actions or anything that go on, or need for road closures for a variety of reasons, whether it's flooding or whatever that comes along, it'd be nice to have some additional equipment, public safety equipment, to more adequately do street closures. So just the staff to look at that and bring us back some suggestions.
Okay.
So that's my.
Councilmember Weber, please.
Yes, thank you. Councilman Thompson brought up an interesting point about the Eagle, and I often look at that little room back there, and I wonder, does it ever get used? And
Its purpose was to be the press room for the
Sure.
news media, but it's never been used
right.
for that.
So when we talk about that, perhaps we could talk about maybe removing that window or something so it's in display, or maybe when you're talking about this interior stuff next year, perhaps we could talk about removing that completely and allowing the Eagle to be on display in the corner and perhaps even some more seats, I don't know. So, because I just noted that in the whole time I've been here, I've never seen that thing be used.
Yeah, and we haven't put it back in that room yet because I wanted to reduce the amount of times that it's moved, so to prevent it from tipping over or getting damaged
Sure.
unintentionally until our new windows come in and are installed. So it will be moved back into that room, and we can look at other options there.
Sure.
Councilmember Goodson.
I'm not done, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Please,
Excuse
please
me.
forgive me.
Yeah, I thought you were.
I wanted to acknowledge that I had a wonderful conversation with Chief Tens the other day, and thank you for the time that you gave me. You gave me 2.5 hours of time to literally give me a tour of the entire facility, and then I met several of the firefighters. Their morale was very high. They had nothing but positive things to say, not only about what's going on there, but with you as well. They were very gracious, and I don't know if that's because it was right in front of you or not. No, I'm just, but anyway, I really enjoyed that. And then on the website, you gave me a preview of that website, and I was hoping that because we had talked a little bit about you being able to come and do a presentation perhaps with that, and I'm really hoping that your superiors will give you the permission to do so, because when I spoke with Terry Tata about it, she was extremely, because that's one of her major concerns is fire safety awareness and the communities and zones and what zone you live in. So I think this is going to be a really important tool, and I thank you for that. And I'm looking forward to, if you get the permission, that we will make a way, right, Terry? We'll make a way for you to give a presentation at that citizen-led initiative we were talking about. I'm also thankful for you being willing to talk about that youth initiative that we were talking about, and we could explore that and how we could get the youth involved to take in that ownership. And and thank you for just being available. I just wanted to acknowledge that. Also, I wanted to acknowledge Chief LeGrone and Ron Belzer too. Your guys' input with the citizen-led initiative has been incredibly valuable, and I appreciate everything you guys are doing. Your expertise and the training that you're going to provide. I understand that Terry asked you guys to do some additional training for us, our neighborhood watch walk as well. We're looking forward to that, and we got a lot of people in the community that are really interested in that. Thank you, Terry Tata, for being who you are and all you do for the community, and for being willing to partner, and along with all the chaos that comes with this, because whenever there's a new thing happening or whenever there's growth happening, there's stretching that happens, and it can be uncomfortable. And I also wanted to acknowledge Brian Wong. Thank you for your input as well. You are a leader in our community, and I'm super thankful for your wisdom. Chuck left, but I wanted to acknowledge, thank you for acknowledging Ernie Reynolds earlier. Ernie was a community leader for many, many years, and I just wanted to acknowledge his dedication and sacrifice to our community. And I also wanted to send my condolences to Chuck and his family. I know that Ernie was much loved, and he's going to be much missed. But he lived to be a ripe old age of 93, so I think he fought the good fight, and I think he's doing all right. And last but not least, I also wanted to acknowledge to Councilwoman Goodson. I apologize for not coming to the event for MLK, and the reason why I didn't come is I thought it was in the evening. My apologies. And so that the burden of that is on me for not having done my homework properly. But when I found out that it had already transpired, I was very disappointed in myself because not a lot of people know this, but Martin Luther King is one of my heroes, and I mean that most earnestly and genuinely.
I will remind you next year.
Thank you.
I will hold
yeah,
you
please
to
do. Yeah, please. And because I seen it on Facebook. I seen it on the news. It was the newspaper, and I thought, oh my goodness, I would have loved to have been there to honor the man and his legacy and his sacrifice, quite frankly, to humanity. I have certain heroes in my life, and my Lord and Savior being my primary one, but Martin Luther King is definitely like probably second or third. Abraham Lincoln is right up there. Fantastic peoples and citizens that both of them really laid their life down for the cause. Really, and the cause was, of course, true equality and the Emancipation Proclamation, and then the Civil Rights Movement that Dr. Martin Luther King did, and his life work is just it's left a huge impression on me. My favorite speech that he did ever was August 28th, 1963 in Washington in the shadow of another great American, Abraham Lincoln. And he said so much from that. But you know, one of the principles I took away from that he said, I have a dream that one day my four little children will live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but rather by the content of their character. And that was a philosophy that I adopted because I remember learning about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. as a child in school and understood he was an important man, but I didn't know just how deep. I didn't know until I became an adult. And then I started watching his speeches and reading very very deep man of faith, conviction, moral compass that pointed toward peace. And I not many people know this until right now, but that philosophy actually pours over into my family, and I teach my kids that we are all created equal and that nobody can be judged. So we've been here a long time, and I just wanted to acknowledge that and acknowledge that we just celebrated Martin Luther King Day, and what a great American, what a great sacrifice he made for the movement to civil rights. So thank you.
I really appreciate that. Thank you for sharing. Is it me?
Councilman Goodson.
Am I up? So it's a segue. I would be remiss if I did not share with you something that we put on every year, approximately 30 years ago, but more so when Pastor David Goodson and a couple of community members got together 18 years ago, and they carried that torch that Anita Bell had inspired. As a matter of fact, at the celebration yesterday, Mike Ramsey gave a tribute to Anita Bell. The multi-purpose room in the Southside Center is actually, it commemorates her. So I did want to share that there was we always have an excellent turnout, approximately 250 to 300 people that walk through. We start out with a pancake breakfast, and that is, we hired Chef Garibaldi. We love him, his services, and as he's out of Chico, he does have a catering business as well. So look him up whenever you go to Chico. I believe he worked at Las Plumas for a number of years. And he was a teacher, and then he wanted to go into the catering business. Every year, we award approximately 8 to 10 high school, college-bound students for community service, for great GPA, and just moving on with a broader vision and goal in life. We were able to award 8 recipients. They each receive $500 apiece, and we added a new component the past 2 years. So it's a scholarship and a technology award, and that technology is a new laptop. So there was dancing, we had musical selections from churches, a rendition of I Have a Dream speech by Dr. Lamar Collins, who is the current principal of Las Plumas, and it was his son. So dignitaries were there, school board members, principals of Stream and Las Plumas, and Judge Benson, District Attorney Mike Ramsey, Congressman Doug Lamoffa, so on and so forth. So we do it better every year. We thank you for the community. We thank you for our sponsors. Oroville Hospital is our premier. We were able to add Brian Wong. Thank you so very much. Oroville Police Association and Cal Water and so many more. So we just thank you. Thank you, community, for supporting and undergirding our young people to go higher.
Excellent, thank you.
And Mayor Pittman was there.
All right, thank you. I did enjoy it. It was a good day for the day, the little time that I was there. I wanted to mention for the history speech was given by Larry Munch, M-A-U-C-H, and he'll be doing the full presentation to the Butte County Historical Museum
Society.
Society up at Spencer Avenue.
Yes.
Next
We can
month.
get that date
Yeah.
and send it to the council
I mean,
as
if
well.
you want to learn about the Chinese history, you really got to sit down and listen to it because he's got the detail. I don't know how many, I mean, it was thousands of articles he's read and put it all together so it makes sense to us to understand the dynamics that occurred in the community. So it was a great presentation. And I just want to echo what Vice Mayor Smith said, that Heather has done a wonderful job of organizing the docents. I've been to many docent recognitions in the past, and I see a very interesting level of excitement in the docents. So it's really encouraging. You know, they take care of something that we have as a huge asset that we don't have any really funding to put in place. So last year was 3,000 hours donated, and that's a wonderful thing. And I want to compliment our curator for that activity. It was very good and very, plus I want to say something about the Table Mountain Golf Course. That was probably the best dinner setup I'd ever seen. I mean, tables, it was like I was going to the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. I thought, what is all this? I mean, it was really strange and great food. So thanks to that group out there, they did a wonderful job. Councilman Riggs.
Thank you. I just, with all this talk about the Chinese history, I thought it would be important to mention that this weekend is the Chinese New Year.
Thank you.
And there will
Good
be a
point.
celebration at the Chinese temple.
Good point, and we should all come down to celebrate that because I believe the Dragon from San Francisco is coming up, as I was told.
Yes, the White Crane Dancers will be there. They start at 3 p.m. The event will be from 1 to 4 p.m. Rain or shine, if it's raining, they will move the White Crane Dancers to the convention center.
Right.
Is it Saturday or Sunday?
Sunday.
Sunday.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
Sunday. Vice Mayor Smith.
Yeah, thank you. Just, I know it's late. I will not be there. I want to be there. I'm going to be in Sacramento representing Oroville. This one, the International Sportsman's Expo starts on Thursday through Sunday. So I'll be there representing Oroville. So if you get a chance, stop on to the Cal Expo, and that event will be going on for 4 full days. And then I too, likewise, apologize for not being at the MLK. I'm getting my house sold, and I've been busy, and I got a punch list a mile long. So of getting it. So it's in escrow. Woohoo! Very excited about that.
Congratulations.
But yeah, so I just I had to get that done. But next year I will be there.
Okay.
Hold me to it.
I'm going to hold
All
you
right.
to it.
I'll be looking for the email reminder.
Last item I want to mention too is I attended the Economic Development Economic Forum at Chico State that happens every year in January. And I'd gotten my tickets a long time ago, so I was there. And Oroville has been a sponsor of that in the past, and this is something we ought to look forward next year. In fact, I was thinking it'd be great if we have an idea that maybe when we have our branding conclusion done, that might be a great location to announce and present our branding issue, because every community is struggling. The comment is we're not going to see a recession, but we're going to see a slowdown in the area. And it was very interesting to listen to the local folks. Our previous Vice Mayor, Jamie Johansson, did a wonderful speech. He happens to be the president of the Farm Bureau for California, and he did a wonderful talk about the details. And the thing to be ready for is, do you realize 50% of our farmers did not farm this last season because of lack of water? So you're going to see the prices skyrocket by the time the catch-up comes around. So just be aware that's coming. So short of that and all the discussions, I want to thank everybody in the audience for being here and sticking out with us. I will adjourn this meeting to the next regular meeting of the Oroville Council will be held February 7th, 2023 at 4 p.m. Thank you all.
I really love those colors.
That one die? Got good ones. And I'll make sure to get some for you.
Thank you for the.
These ones are the ones that I handed you, or the ones that the public